Recording in progress.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and bring the December 1st, 2022 Board of Adjustment meeting to order. Madam Secretary, roll call, please.
Clay Thomas,
Here.
Rob Pierce,
Present.
Don Christensen,
Here.
Kathy Julian,
Here.
Brad Stanley.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. We'll all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Large, ethics law announcement, please.
Board members are reminded that if with respect to any matter or any person coming before the board today, you've received a gift or a loan, you have a pecuniary interest, you have a commitment in a private capacity such as a family, employment, business, or similar relationship, or you provided representation or counseling before an agency to a person or entity for compensation within the last year on a matter being considered, you must disclose the gift, loan, interest, commitment, or prior representation at the time the matter is being considered. And you must furthermore abstain from deliberation on vote or voting on the matter if it is clear that the gift, loan, interest, commitment, or prior representation will materially affect the independence of judgment of a reasonable person. Board members are also reminded that under the Board of Adjustment rules, if you had contact outside this meeting with any person interested in a matter coming before the board today, you just should disclose the nature of that contact at this meeting.
Thank you. Mr. Lloyd, appeal procedure.
All right. Most decisions rendered by the Board of Adjustment are appealable to the Board of County Commissioners. If you disagree with the decision of the Board of Adjustment and you qualify as an aggrieved person or party, you may appeal in writing within 10 calendar days from the date that the decision being appealed is reduced to writing, filed with the Secretary of the Board of Adjustment, and mailed to the original applicant in the proceeding being appealed, in accordance with Washoe County Code. Please call the planning staff immediately at 328-6100 for information on the appeal procedure and the application fee.
Thank you. Next is public comment. Comments heard under this item will be limited to 3 minutes per person, may pertain both to matters both on and off the agenda. However, action may not be taken on any matter raised during the public comment period until this matter is specifically listed on the agenda as an action item. Comments are to be made to the Board of Adjustment as a whole. Madam Secretaries, do we have anyone wishing to speak at this time?
I have no hands raised via Zoom, and we have no public comment in chambers.
Thank you. Moving on, approval of the December 1st, 2022 agenda. To start, is there any discussion? Seeing none, I'll accept a motion.
I so move.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Motion by Mr. Stanley, seconded by Mr. Pierce. All in favor? Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Next is approval of the November 3rd, 2022 draft minutes. Is there any discussion on this item before we take a vote on it? Mr. Stanley.
Yes, I have one minor correction, I think, or, yeah, clarification. On page 23 of 24, number 10, B, item B. Line 8. I think the word "could the board do better," it should read "could this board do better." There's a discussion there between the Board of Adjustments and the Board of County Commissioners, and I wanted to make it clear that the comment was that we could improve our work product to the BCC by having the information we requested.
Noted. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments? Seeing none, I'll accept the motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Pierce. Second.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to the first item on the agenda, administrative permit case number WAD-MIN 22-0024 garage. I believe we have Ms. Olander.
I have, this is Rob. I know the applicant, but I didn't realize it was his garage until he walked into the building. So I just need to let you guys know that I know him, but we haven't discussed this.
Mr. Chairman, from legal, I don't see any reason that the commissioner should abstain or not deliberate on this matter.
Thank you, Mr. Large. Thank you, Mr. Pierce. Planner Olander, you are up.
Good afternoon, Chairman and Board. This is Julie Olander for the record with Planning and Building. So this is an administrative permit for the dock garage.
Is your mic on?
I don't know, maybe, is the mic on?
Yes.
Okay. And it's not progressing.
Try it again.
Ms. Olander, I don't know if the announcement was made earlier, but I asked the secretary to have you.
I will speak
Now, you
up, yes.
particularly, but
Yes.
if you could speak up, I can't.
Is it on?
I can't hear you.
That's okay.
All right. Julie Olander with Planning and Building. So this is a request for an administrative permit for 4,800 square foot detached accessory structure that is larger than the 2,144 square foot main house. It's located off of La Posada on Hercules Drive, and then there's a close-up view of it, of the property itself on the right. The parcel has a regulatory zoning of low-density suburban, LDS, and the proposed structure will comply with LDS setback standards of 30 feet in the front and rear and 12 on the sides, and the height requirement of 35 feet. LDS does allow a building footprint on the side of 25% of the property being under building footprint, and with the proposed building, we're looking at about 6,944 square feet, which is approximately 15% of the 1 acre lot. The applicant has indicated that the structure will be used as a garage for storage of trailers and other vehicles. Oops. The parcel is relatively flat, and the proposed detached garage will be located, or structure will be located in the rear of the property behind the residence. The structure will have electricity and gas to power a heater, and it will be connected to the septic and community water for the bathroom that's in the structure. A condition has been included that requires the applicant to obtain a deed restriction at the time of the building permit to prevent the structure from being used as an accessory dwelling unit. The area on the north and the south side of the property of the garage will be landscaped, and the structure will be painted a similar gray color as the house. Here's a view of the footprint and then also elevation of the structure. So you can see that the garage is the rear of the residence. The residence is at the top of the screen, and the garage is at the bottom. All right. Various agents have reviewed this application, and any of the agencies with conditions are included in the conditions of approval. Staff is able to make the findings as detailed in the staff report. I missed something. Wait, let me go back. Oh, yeah, the noticing. So there was no neighborhood meeting required for this kind of application. 31 parcels were noticed. I did not receive any phone calls or emails. And this is about the findings again. And then I provide a possible motion. The applicant is available for questions. He does not have a presentation, though. And I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Olander. Are there any questions for staff? Seeing none, thank you very much.
I have a question. How high is the building? Kathy Julian for the record.
Yeah.
How tall is the roof?
This is Julie Olander for the record. Let me just check on the height. You know, maybe the applicant can answer that question. Oh. You have to come out.
I'll tell you what, Ms. Olander, thank you very much. What we'll do is we'll hold that question. We'll have the applicant ask that. I do know within your documentation or your staff report, it says that it's within the 35-foot height requirement.
It is below the 35 feet. I can't find, I was going to find the exact height, but the applicant's here and he can probably answer that better than I can.
Thank you. If you can step up and give us your name, please. And
My name is Kevin Dash, D-A-C-H. The height is 16 feet at the peak, and it slopes down to 14 feet at the eaves. And then the garage doors obviously would be less than that.
thank you, sir. Are there any more questions for this gentleman? Thank you. Hearing none, we'll go ahead and close that. Madam Secretary, is there any public comment on this item?
Ma'am, if you would like to make public comment, please come to the podium, state your first and last name, and fill out one of our public comment cards after, please.
Yeah, my name's Joanne Silva, and I own actually 140 Hercules, which is right next door to him. The only reason why I purchased that house is for the view. And when I set it on my back patio and look at the mountains and everything, I don't know if that's going to be so tall that I won't be able to see my view anymore, as well as I don't want to feel boxed in like I'm in an industrial park. I thought it was going to be too huge for our neighborhood, as well as I believe that my property value will go down as well. I do have a petition started for a few of our neighbors. I didn't get enough because nobody would answer their door. I want to know if I can get a continuation on that, so I don't know if that matters for me getting a petition of the neighbors that do not want this there.
Okay, thank you for your comment. We appreciate that. I just, maybe for a point of clarification, I'll look at Mr. Larcher, but since this is only public comment, that is what we're restricted to at this time, and it's not up to, I believe, public comment to ask for a continuance.
That's correct. That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Okay, does this matter at all that I have people that sign that say they don't want it as well?
Mr. Chairman, Michael Large for the record. You could submit any documentation you want to the clerk for the record, and we can put it in there, make sure that it's reflected. If you want to give us the original, we can make a copy of it after the meeting.
Thank you. I do not have any further public comment in chambers, but I do have a hand raised via Zoom.
Thank you.
John, if you could please unmute yourself and state your first and last name for the record.
First name is John, last name is Schulteis.
The floor is yours.
I'm a neighbor, one street over, and I'm certainly not averse to the idea of somebody building a large shop. I want to build a large shop myself, but not anything nearly that large, and that concerns me. I saw in the notes that it said it will be used for storing RVs and other vehicles, and I'm just curious whether that's Mr. Doc being a collector, or whether this will be a commercial venture where he's going to be renting space to people for storing vehicles. If he's a collector, I want to meet him and become his friend. If he's trying to start a commercial venture, then I have concerns about a massive building in the neighborhood for that purpose.
Thank you. At this time, I have no further hands raised via Zoom.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. We will go ahead and bring this back to the board for discussion. Any discussion on this matter? Mr. Stanley.
Mr. Chair, I actually have a question for, probably for the applicant, if that's possible, to bring him up. It's a quick question.
Yes, sir. This is Kevin Dash again.
Hello, thank you. There was mention of the concern about the building being too tall, too high. And you, I think if I followed, you were saying it's 16 feet at the peak and 14 feet at the eaves. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Roughly, how does that compare with the height of your primary residence there?
I haven't measured the primary residence, but maybe I'm sure it's close to like 12, so probably 4 feet higher.
Okay, all right.
I can answer the question from the gentleman on Zoom if you'd like as well. I don't actually have any RVs right now. I would be, if there was an RV, it'd be one RV. I am not using it as a business. I collect classic cars, so it would be for classic car collections. The trailers that are mentioning are like a car trailer to hold these classic cars and to pick them up and things of that nature. So it's purely for storing vehicles inside so that they're not getting ruined by the weather. Also, I don't want to have a bunch of vehicles and garbage outside where you can make your place look a lot better if everything's put away.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Okay, it's still back with the board. Mr. Christensen.
Mr. Dash, if you can come back to the podium, I have another question for you. Talking about the height of your house, that's a single-story house?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm looking at the illustration on page 4, and I see 2 trailers on the right side. If you would, I guess that would be the east side of the property. One of them appears to be an RV.
Yes, I have had an RV in the past. I don't currently have an RV.
So this is not a current illustration. Huh? That other trailer is it looks like an aluminum car trailer.
That is correct, sir. There's an enclosed car trailer as well as a motorcycle trailer that's opened that you use like to take things to the dump.
Okay. Very good. So that answers my third question, was if anybody is inhabiting that trailer that's in the illustration, but it's not there, so.
Absolutely not. There's nobody living on the property but me and my wife at this time.
Pass. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I can answer the other question from the lady in the audience. Obviously, I don't want to interfere with any of her views and things like that. I'm very understanding to the neighbors. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, she's the house to the west of me. So that my house would be the opposite direction of all the views of the mountains. And I believe that house is owned by renters, or possessed by renters right now too. And I have talked to the renters in the past. Very nice people. So.
Thank you, Mr. Dash. I have nothing. Thank you. Any further discussion amongst the board members?
No.
Hearing none, I will entertain a motion.
This is Rob for the record. I'll make a motion. I move that after giving reasonable consideration to information contained in staff report and information received during the public hearing and the Board of Adjustments approve administrative permit case number WAD-MIN 22-0024 for Kevin Dash, with the conditions included in Exhibit A of this matter, having made all 5 findings in accordance with Washoe County Development Code Section 110.808.25, consistency, improvement, site suitability, issuance not detrimental, and no effects on a military installation.
Thank you. Is there a second?
For the record, Don Christensen, I second that motion.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, item carries unanimously. Before we move on, Mr. Lloyd, I just want to ask you, since there seems to be some concern over this and they're attempting to get people to sign on, do you think an reading of the appeal again is necessary or not?
It's always a good idea. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I think she's just left, though.
Oh, but I'll still read it anyway.
Thank you.
Most decisions rendered by the Board of Adjustment are appealable to the Board of County Commissioners. If you disagree with the decision of the Board of Adjustment and you qualify as an aggrieved person or party, you may appeal in writing within 10 calendar days from the date that the decision being appealed is reduced to writing, filed with the Secretary of the Board of Adjustment, and mailed to the original applicant in the proceeding being appealed in accordance with Washoe County Code. Please call the planning staff immediately at 328-6100 for information on the appeal procedure and the application fee.
Thank you, Mr. Lloyd. Moving on, next item on the agenda is special use permit case number WSUP 22-0022, Dahlin SFD grading. And we have Planner Oakley that I believe will present.
Hello, Kat Oakley, Washoe County Planning for the record. The case before you today is a special use permit for major grading associated with a single family residence and a couple accessory structures for Stan and Deborah Dahlin. This property is located at 65 Wilsour Road. That's off of Old US 395, the Franktown area. It is approximately 5 acres, and surrounding parcels are similar in size and developed with single-family dwellings, or are also, there are some large tracts of public land to the west of the subject property. It falls within the South Valleys area plan and is zoned general rural. Like I said, the grading is for a new dwelling and 2 accessory structures. It will result in a disturbed area greater than ½ an acre, and that's what triggers the need for a special use permit. Here's an enlarged, but still hard to see version of the grading plan. I'll dig into it a little bit more later, but you can see that there's an access road from an existing road on the property, a few retaining walls, and other site improvements that require the grading. The parcel has quite a bit going on it. There's an irrigation ditch that is within a 30-foot easement that runs across the property, kind of in the middle there. You can see it marked out with some linear hashes, and there's also a portion of a stream-sensitive buffer zone area on the southern edge of the lot for a watercourse that runs on the parcel to the south. In addition, it's generally characterized by slopes over 15% and has a significant area of slopes over 30% as well. Here is the slope analysis that they provided. So red is the flatter areas and blue is the steeper area there. So you can see that the proposed location of the residence does encroach a little bit into that 30% or steeper area, which I'll expand upon in a moment. But you can see there are some flatter areas on the southern portion of the lot and then also closer to Wilsour Road. To talk a little bit about the details of the grading as it relates to our grading standards, all the retaining walls that they've proposed are 4 feet or shorter. There are proposed 3-to-1 slopes, which is within the bounds of our code. And like I said before, there is an existing access road that they're utilizing and coming off of that will help reduce disturbance. So overall, the grading that you see here, it is all in line with our code. And it complies with all of our standards. One other element of this property is that the hillside development standards of Article 424 are applicable. So that's applicable to lots, residential lots that are created before 1994 when this was adopted. And one of the elements of it, in addition to some standards which I included in the conditions of approval, are that there's a determination of developable area. And that's the areas that aren't characterized by these qualities that make them less suitable for development, including slopes greater than 30%, areas of landslides or landslide potential, areas with recently active faults, habitat for rare and endangered species, and significant streams, ravines, and drainage ways. So part of the submittal requirements for applications in where these standards are applicable are a developable area map, and you can see that here. So it has the features we discussed before, the stream buffer zone area, the irrigation ditch. In between that, there, according to the geotechnical report, I believe there was some evidence of previous landslide activity. So that's why that's marked out there with the sort of chevron-y hash marks. And then in the northern portion of the lot, that's where you see in green a relatively contiguous area with slopes less than 30%, and then that other area with slopes greater than 30%. And as you can see highlighted in red, a portion of the proposed house does go into that area. And so that brings us to the question of when encroaching into that area is allowed and when it's not. And so there are provisions in the hillside standards that allow exceptions to the rule to stay out of the slopes greater than 30%. And that's when there are extenuating circumstances. And so one of the things that staff did while reviewing this is ask the applicant to address those potential circumstances. That was a memo to that effect was included as, I believe, the last portion of the application packet in the packet that you all received. And the main thing that they referenced that was significant to staff was that the location of the house helps maintain a greater number of existing native trees. And so the reason that's significant is that as I go through in the staff report, the maintenance of existing vegetation is one of the stated goals of the hillside development standards. And so since the threshold laid out here is extenuating circumstances, staff thinks that that could be considered an extenuating circumstance to encroach a bit into that 30% or steeper slopes. And so with that in mind, 18 agencies reviewed this and provided conditions as well. Notice was sent out as usual, and staff can make all 5 findings. That is consistency with the master plan and area plan, adequate improvements, site suitability, issuance non-detrimental, and effect on a military installation. And I will just mention that as you guys saw in the packets, a number of comments were received from surrounding property owners, and they were all neutral or in favor of the proposed application. And so with that, here's a sample motion for approval with conditions, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Is there any questions for staff?
Yes, Kathy Julian for the record.
Go ahead.
Yes, Ms. Oakley, on the tree issue and the do you have a photograph of the area that with the Jeffrey pines that are more mature that are trying to be saved, so to speak?
So if you look on the grading plans, they do indicate the locations of some existing trees and have X's through the ones that they're intending to remove with the grading as proposed. I would say for more details on that, I would recommend asking the applicant's representative who is here, or the applicant is also online to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any more questions? Mr. Stanley?
Planner Oakley, a matter of clarification, I think. In this case description, it says grading associated with the construction. In the topmost, it says major grading special use for a new single-family dwelling. What we're looking at today is approving or not approving an SUP for the grading, and then everything else is stepwise down the line. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Just for clarification.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Any more questions for staff? Mr. Christensen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, I realize we're not looking at all the permits in total, but I'm just curious. I may have missed it if you said how many trees were planning on being removed and how many are going to be replaced. I didn't hear that.
Yeah. I did not state a number. I'm not sure. The applicant's representative might have an exact number for you. I could look at the plans and get a number if you would like.
Okay. At this point, no, that's fine. I'm a little impressed with the sheer volume of information that was given us, which I found absolutely fascinating. I'm just curious if did I miss the actual comment cards? Were there copies of those from the neighbors? You said they're all in affirmative, but.
Yeah, so the comments from the neighbors were included in the public comment exhibit, which I believe was C. I can see how it got lost amongst the technical information that was required by the hillside standards, but they should be, someone correct me if I'm wrong, but exhibit C.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
You're correct.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I probably fell asleep during that portion of my reading, but again, I just compliment everyone for being very thorough. And my biggest concern would be the neighbors' comments, and I'll read those before I vote.
I just have one, I don't know if it's, maybe you can clarify it for me. This is Mr. Thomas. Exhibit F, page 91. The second photo has a red area. I'm assuming that is the actual area that is, they're looking at for grading.
Let me look.
Please. That would also tend to cover some of the discussion about maybe the amount of trees, or at least the location of the area it's going to have an impact on. So it'd be Exhibit F, page 91. Bottom photo.
Kat, I'll share
That is
my
correct.
screen.
Thank you.
Yes.
That kind of gives, I think, everyone an opportunity to kind of see where the grading is going to be. Thank you very much for that. Are there any further questions for staff? Mr. Stanley?
Yeah, a short one, I think. There was a mention of mature trees and trying to save those. Any kind of ballpark on what mature means?
In terms of years, no. Having conducted a site visit, there are a number of trees that are quite tall and generally look very established. For more details, I'd refer you to the applicant.
All right. Thank you.
Yes.
Any further questions for staff? Seeing none, thank you. Is the applicant present, and do they wish to speak on this matter?
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, my name is Rob Anderson. I'm a professional engineer registered in several states, including Nevada. I am the applicant's representative. Ms. Dolan, who is the applicant, is also present and available by Zoom to help answer any questions that you have. I want to be brief. I think staff report, as I think Mr. Christensen pointed out, was very thorough and well done. The applicant does concur with each of the findings. Amongst my staff in R.O. Anderson Engineering, we have professional planners and landscape architects as well as civil engineers. We too went through those findings in great detail, and you saw some of that justification. And we concur with the assessment. With respect to the conditions of approval, we agree with those. The applicant is anxious to obviously proceed with constructing their primary residence and the facilities that are shown within the plans. With respect to the question of the one commissioner relative to the number of trees that are protected, I do not have that number. I do know that there are approximately 11 trees that either were dead or dying or interfere in the disturbed area and will be removed either by the excessive grading that's necessary to accomplish the slopes and maintain Washoe County standards for those facilities. So a couple of those trees, though, were dead and dying, and those have been removed for obvious reasons by the applicant to date. And then there are some more that are going to be in the way of some of the walls that are shown on the plan as well as the driveways. So again, I'm available to answer any of your technical questions that you have, and Ms. Dolan is available by Zoom as well. Thank you so much for your consideration.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Anderson from the board?
This is Rob for the record. Would you be willing to say, would you say 7 or 11?
I think there's 11 that get removed, Ms. Pierce.
Would you be willing to put some more trees in to match what you're taking out?
As part of the landscaping plan?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. They will landscape and restore several of those trees.
Good enough. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions for Mr. Anderson? See none? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Does the applicant, does she wish to actually add anything further to this?
I see no hands raised via Zoom.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. With that, we'll go ahead and close that and bring it to public comment. Is there any public comment on this item?
I have no public comment in chambers or via Zoom.
Thank you very much. With that, we'll bring it back to the board for discussion. Is there any discussion on this matter?
I just, Billion here, just a point and actually a compliment to the staff for including in the conditions the reference to machinery not starting until, I believe she has it in there that the machinery will not start until 7 in the morning, which is following on some good practice, I think, that was established at an earlier meeting, and I appreciate that addition to the condition.
Thank you. Any additional discussion? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion. I'll go ahead and step in and make the motion. I move that after giving reasoned consideration to the information contained in the staff report and information received during this public hearing, the Washington County Board of Adjustment approve with conditions special use permit case number WSUP 22-0022 for Stan and Deborah Dahlin, with the conditions including Exhibit A to this matter, having made all 5 findings in accordance with Washoe County Code Section 110.810.30, that being consistency, improvement, site suitability, issuance not detrimental, and effects on a military installation.
This is Rob for the record. I'll second it.
I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Moving on. Next item on the agenda is special use permit case number WSUP 22-0023, Rose DADAR for possible action, and we have, I believe, Mr. Pelham present. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, Roger Pelham with Washoe County Planning. This is a special use permit for a secondary dwelling, that is to say a detached accessory dwelling. And I'm not sure what I just did. One moment, please. There we go. Of approximately 800 square feet or a little bit less within a parcel that is zoned medium density suburban, MDS, in the Southeast Truckee Meadows area plan. Here we have the site plan. As you can see, north is going to be to our left here. There's an existing detached accessory structure there that's going to be heavily remodeled. Bottom floor will essentially remain a garage, and a new second story will be the proposed accessory dwelling unit. And here we have the overhead photo. Again, the arrow there is indicating the existing detached accessory structure. Here we have a floor plan for the proposed second floor. You can see we have our stairs going up and then essentially a little apartment there, kitchen, living room, bedroom, everything necessary for complete and independent living. And here we have our proposed elevations. Again, the bottom floor there being the garage and workshop area. And here we are looking at it from the other 2 directions. This was provided to all of the relevant agencies. We had no recommendations for denial. This will meet all of the required setbacks for the regulatory zone. Detached accessory dwellings are permissible in the MDS zone subject to the approval of a special use permit. This was provided, that is to say, public notice was provided. That map and documentation is included at, I believe, Exhibit D in your staff report. We have comments on each of the required findings. Staff believes that all of those required findings can be made. We did, however, have several letters in opposition. About 4 of them were included with your staff report, and another 4 were received by staff after your staff report was completed. And I believe that sort of all of those letters can kind of be characterized as expressing that this proposed project will be detrimental to the character of the surrounding area. That is their opinion. They have the right to express that. In addition to the 4 included with your packet, I believe these were also provided to you prior to this hearing. And there they are. In the interest of time, I'm not going to read each one of those in as they have been provided to you. After a thorough analysis and review, I am recommending approval of the proposed detached accessory dwelling with conditions as included in your staff report. Should you agree, we have a proposed motion. On the other hand, should you disagree, we also have a motion available for you. And with that, I'm available to address any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Mr. Pelham, yes, I do have a couple questions. I don't know if this one is for you or for the applicant, but I know on the, on Exhibit A, under the Washoe County Development Plan, it says this is an amended application.
Yes.
Do you know what was amended on it?
Yes. Initially, the plan submitted including turning the floor, the first floor into a dwelling and then having a stairwell up to a second floor that they were calling storage. But the way that was configured, it was all as one. The storage area would have been included in the dwelling unit, and that's bigger than is allowed in the regulatory zone. In the MDS zone, detached accessory dwelling is limited to a maximum of 800 square feet. This one's about 768, I believe, under the emitted plans. So we're styled okay. Our notice was for 800. We can always do a little bit less than that.
Thank you. And in addition, reading the documentation, it said that they wanted to convert the attic space basically into a living space. So does that mean that the height of this structure will not exceed what it already is? Or are they going to be, or maybe the applicant needs to answer that?
I believe that this is currently a one-story structure and it's going to end up a two-story, but
okay.
Let's go ahead and confirm that with the applicant.
All right, I can do that with the applicant. Any further questions for staff?
Yes, Kathy Julian for the record. I was curious why this is a very congested neighborhood, or it's not a rural neighborhood, and the timing of construction is given as 7 to 7, but there's no reference to starting up of equipment. Was there a reason why you did not suggest that, given the density of the neighborhood here?
The construction hours being limited to 7/7 is actually a code requirement. When we include them as a condition, it's really more just a courtesy for the applicant to simply make them aware of that, but it's already a code requirement. Generally speaking, we don't condition code.
All right. And, okay, and am I to understand that this structure will continue to be a garage in the lower half? And then the accessory dwelling unit will be above the garage?
Yes.
Okay, so, all right, thank you.
Sir.
Thank you. Mr. Stanley.
You know, to follow on to the earlier question just being asked, the 7 to 7, Roger, I realize that you've educated us on that being the time frame, but the changes in the last couple of, maybe last 3 or 4 months have been, or an amendment, that mobilization is not to begin before 7.
If you'd like, we can certainly add that as a condition of approval. That's well within your
purview. We've been having complaints about, you know, the gear starting up at 5:30 or something.
Certainly.
So, okay, so there's no problem with that?
Not a problem in the least. I can certainly add that condition at your direction.
Thank you, Roger.
Should you approve.
Thank you. Any more? Mr. Christensen.
Thank you. I'm reading the homeowners, the neighbors' letters in opposition, and I'm a little concerned. I take it from the content here and the entire package that there is not an underlying HOA involved in this. They're referencing CCNRs, which are more standard. There's not a homeowners association.
There is not, to the best of my understanding. Generally speaking, Washoe County does not involve itself with CCNRs. Those are private agreements between private property owners, and we're in nearly all instances, we are simply not involved with that.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions for staff?
Well, may I follow, Kathy Julian for the record, may I follow up on that point? So if a CCNR has a restriction on, let's say, short-term rentals or accessory dwelling units, that those CNRs are superseded by any county regulation?
I am going to defer that question to council.
Michael Larch for the record. As Mr. Pelham stated, the CCNRs are a private agreement between homeowner and their essentially the neighborhood in which they live. The question of whether or not a CCNR would prohibit an STR or would prohibit a business use, as in this case, the question before this board is whether or not the findings can be made to use this to make the conversion to an accessory dwelling. What that is used for and whether that would be a violation of a business code or a CCNR is solely the purview of the owner and the relationship with the neighborhood, not for this board to consider.
Thank you, Mr. Large. Any other additional questions for staff? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Is the applicant present and wish to speak on this matter?
Good afternoon, gentlemen, the board. My name is Ken Rose. I am the applicant. I'm also an architect. And before I begin into my much longer version of what's going to occur than Roger did, I would like to congratulate you for your civic duty, because I used to sit behind that podium myself for 9 years on the Washoe County Parks and Recreation Department. I hope your chairs are as comfortable as they were for me. So I'd like to explain the intent of our SUP. First of all, I want to answer the questions that you brought up about the existing dwelling, not dwelling, the existing structure. It is a garage, and it's approximately 768 square feet, a little less than 800. And the upstairs is a 4-hip roof to a small cupola that is about 384 square feet. And the previous owner, the first owner that I bought the house from, had a communications company, and they used this outbuilding to produce their telephone boards, and their office was upstairs. There are no utilities to the building other than electricity. There's no water, no gas, no sewer. We originally thought that because I'm retiring, I'm 75 right now, we would be able to develop the downstairs and use the upstairs for overflow storage that our children provide for us, and I'll get to that in a moment. I had planned for a vestibule to go into the garage and into a stairway to the upstairs within the footprint, so I wouldn't have to add on extra foundation work. But I can understand the concern was that it would be a communicative device to go from one story to the other story, and it would be considered a single dwelling. Okay, I get it. Now, we thought about this for a while. This is my wife with me, by the way. We're going to go ahead and develop the upstairs. And I have room up there to put an elevator there so I can get upstairs to live in that. I'm going to get to that in a minute, too. So let me tell you that the height of that building is now 21 feet above the grade, and by the time we're finished, it'll be 23. The height for my house that I'm living in right now, our main dwelling, is 30. So we have a 2-story house that we live in, and we have a half acre of land. And on that half acre of land, we have a swimming pool, we have a hot tub, we have cornhole games to play. We have a barbecue area. We have a place for all of our kids to come to. We have a beautiful view of Mount Rose. I'm providing you with a photograph, aerial view of our neighborhood, so you'll get an idea of where my property is situated within this neighborhood. Okay, I put that on the display. I don't know if you can see this very good from the resolution in the background here, but our property, my property, backs up to what's called the toll road, not the toll road, excuse me, the haul road for the pit that provides all of the building materials for foundations and grade work for all the development down in the southeast meadows. There's nobody behind us. We have a beautiful view of Mount Rose. We are at the end of a cul-de-sac. So our neighbors are basically completely removed from our little cul-de-sac area. There are 6 properties that are adjacent to ours. We know the first names of everybody that lives in those properties. Our kids grow up around that cul-de-sac. And speaking of our kids, we have 8. And those kids have spouses and significant others. At least 6 of them do. Well, you think about all the birthday parties that we have to host at our house because our house is special. And now you think about all of the anniversaries, the wedding showers, the bridal showers, the graduation parties. And then on top of that, we have the 4th of July, we have Easter, we have Thanksgiving, we have Christmas, and they're always at our house for good reason. It's a wonderful place to be. We are family oriented. They need a place to stay when they come from out of town. In fact, my wife just picked up one of our daughters and our grandson at the airport, taking them back for their 4-day stay with us. They have to stay upstairs and kick out our other son who's living there with us right now. These kids get in transition. What do we call them? Next gen. The next gen reasons for extending our property. So this for us is all about family. That building that we're in right now was going to be my cabinet shop, but as soon as the kids found out we had space, it became their storage space. Upstairs, they put their drum sets and their little organs so they could always come over and jam and have a great time. We're not a nuisance for noise. We're not a nuisance for excess traffic. We've never had a complaint for any of the gatherings that happened in our cul-de-sac for the 14 years that I've lived there. But we're going to retire someday. And if we do, I want my kids to come back and live in our house so we can stay in the Granny's quarter. They can take care of the house while we go to Mexico for a week. That's all what this is about. So we're making a request for the special use permit to allow us to have a detached accessory dwelling. It's not to rent it out. We're not making an application for a variance because we comply with all the conditions that are required of us. We're not applying for a commercial use so we can have multifamily dwellings. That's crazy. And most but not least is we're not applying for an Airbnb permit. We won't have time to have an Airbnb permit. We want a place for our family to be able to congregate. And to tell you the truth, if our kids come there and they stay with us, by the way, every one of our children have stayed with us in the past 14 years for at least 4 to 6 months at a time, some of them consecutively with each other. And that's how we look forward to coming up in the future when our kids come back from UNLV, they want to live in our house. Well, we want to take off. So we're going to make them pay rent because we have to be able, there's no free ride here. They have to pay for the utilities, they have to pay for the rent, and they have to watch the place while we're gone. So I know you're going to get some letters that say that everyone thinks we're going to have an Airbnb. We're not going to make any request for that. If there was, we wouldn't even think about that. It's a great idea, by the way. But if I want to rent something out, it would be my house, not my casita. Anyway, just like you to know that we're here to answer any questions. If you have any technical questions, if now you know what our intent is. I support the fact that people can come forward and express their opinions. I just don't support the idea that some of these facts that are presented are based on rumors that are unsubstantiated. And thank you for your time. And I'm available to answer any questions after the comments.
Thank you, Mr. Rose. Just stay there for just a second.
Yeah.
Are there any questions for this gentleman?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Stanley, go ahead.
Thank you very much for that presentation. That was great.
Well, thanks. I'm a little nervous, and I do this all the time. I've presented in front of planning commissions and boards all across the state of Nevada. As an architect, I've done schools and public buildings for the last 35 years.
We could tell, and I can certainly relate to the issue of the multi-family or multi-generational use. Just some specifics here, and you mentioned them earlier, but I'm going to ask you to underscore them. The height of your current primary home on the
It's about 29 and a half feet, and there's a chimney that goes higher than that. It's a two-story dwelling. We have 3 bedrooms upstairs, a kitchen, a master bedroom downstairs. That's the only reason I bought that house, is so I could retire in it. Pardon?
And the current height of the garage plus the cupola?
The current height of the cupola above the garage is about 21 feet above grade.
Okay. And the building that's proposed will be what height, please?
2 feet higher.
2 feet higher, 23 then.
We're basically going to replicate the slopes but extend them out to the side.
Thank you.
I think you'll see that on the drawings that you may have, the elevations. It's just slightly higher. But now we're going to have an exterior stairs. And by the way, I don't think Roger saw this or not, but there's a place on the site plan underneath those stairs for us to put in an elevator in the future, should I require one. When I'm 75 years old and I plan to build this mostly out of my labor, she doesn't want that, but we want to hire somebody else to do it. She's afraid I'm going to fall down and break my neck. But I've been a contractor in the past. I work with my hands. I'm a cabinet maker, and I'm an architect. And this is a passion for me. This is my forever home. It's not an Airbnb.
Okay, thank you. Are there any further questions? Mr. Christensen.
Again, Mr. Rose, thank you for your presentation. When I first reviewed this last week, and reading this, we don't, as a board, receive a lot of negative input from neighbors. And this bothered me very much, and you have very, very successfully cleared it, in my mind. Who came up with this notion of an Airbnb? Do you have any idea where that came from?
You know what? I received the same packet you did. There were 4 letters in that packet, and the very first letter was from someone who was anonymous. And their first statement was, I was told they planned to use it as an Airbnb. Of course, they didn't give their name, they didn't give their address, so it's anonymous. That rumor took root as a fact. Unfortunately, that seems to be the social norm nowadays, is to assume that a rumor does have a basis in fact. I don't know where it started. Not a bad idea, but that's not what we're going to do. I have no intent to do that. I'll tell you what we will do, though. We have friends in other parts of the country who would like to come and visit us for hot August nights, for the balloon races, for the air races. They would like to stay with us. We would love that because we want to go and stay at their place, too, in New Mexico, in Santa Barbara, in San Diego. I'd love that. But we can't get away unless our kids are there to help us look after the house.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. And you seriously have dispelled my concerns. And for the benefit of the rest of the board, that makes some of these comments disingenuous in my mind. I'm not real happy about that. But thank you again.
Yeah, like I say, I applaud their exercising their civic duty to express their opinions. I mean, I'm a veteran from the Vietnam War. I was a medic. And that's the right that I espouse. I'm proud of that. I just don't condone the idea of using an unsubstantiated rumor as a fact. We want to talk facts?
Yep.
Let's talk facts.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any other further questions for this gentleman? Seeing none, thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Madam Secretary, do we have any public that wish to speak on this matter?
I do not have any public comment in chambers and no hands raised via Zoom.
Thank you very much. We'll go ahead and close public comment and bring it back to the board for discussion. Is there any discussion?
This is Rob for the record. I think this is a good plan. The guy dispelled the letters, the rumors, and his theory, and cleared up a lot of questions. So I'm in favor of it.
Thank you. Mr. Stanley?
I agree with the former opinion, and particularly since for any kind of visual impairment, the difference between current and proposed is 3 feet. So that's a tough one to see a problem.
Thank you.
I'll just chime in. I agree completely with my colleagues that I like this.
Thank you, Mr. Christensen. Any further discussion?
Yes, Kathy Jillian for the record. Just a comment on the, I appreciate also the explanation given about the use of the property. A query in proposing a motion, I would like for us to consider having the timing of the equipment mobilization to be 7 o'clock, because I did go online and look at this neighborhood on the Google Street View, and it is quite congested, and so I think that would be helpful to the neighbors.
Thank you. Any further discussion? No, that is, public comment is closed, so this is board discussion right now. Are there any further comments? Okay.
Mr. Chair, I believe Planner Pelham pointed out that mobilization at 7 would be easily done and accepted as a condition. Is that correct, Roger?
Yes, to the board member through the chair. I will duplicate the condition of approval that Planner Oakley has in her previous project.
Thank you. Anything further? With that, I will entertain a motion.
This is Rob for the record. I'll make a motion. I move that after given reasonable consideration, the information contained in staff report and information received during the public hearing, the Washoe County Board of Adjustments approve with conditions special use case permit WSUP 22-0023 for Kenneth G. Rose Family Trust with the conditions included in Exhibit A to this matter, having made all 5 findings in accordance with Washoe County Code Section 110.810.30. With the addition of the agreed upon hours, as stated from Roger. Consistency, improvement, site suitability, issuance not detrimental, and no effect on military installation.
Thank you. Is there a second?
There is, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Stanley. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Okay, moving on. Special use permit case number WSUP 22-0030, Rabby Grading. And we have Planner Oakley who will be assisting us on this matter.
Kat Oakley, Washoe County Planning. Yes, so the case before you now is another major grading permit for a single-family dwelling for Jonathan and Amanda Rabby. This property is located at 2410 La Mancha Drive. That's in Spanish Springs. It falls within that area plan, and you can see here it's near Calle de la Plata, that area. It's zoned general rural. The parcel is 10 acres. The surrounding parcels are either a similar size or bigger, 40 acres, and are, generally speaking, developed with dwelling units or are vacant. This proposed grading is for a dwelling and some associated site improvements that will result in more than half of an acre of disturbance and excavation of more than 5,000 cubic yards. Both of those things would trigger this special use permit. There is also a request to vary standard 438.45C to allow for a difference from natural grade of 19 feet. The code generally limits it to 10 feet. Here's a figure of the grading. Again, we'll get into it later, but as you can see, a couple of retaining walls. There's the home, and then pretty extensive site improvements as well. You see a field there to the right of the residence, and then the driveway and parking and those sorts of things. So all that's part of this grading request, or rather, the grading request will support those improvements, and the improvements will be permitted down the line. To give some background on the site, slopes are generally 10 to 40%. You can see in that figure. It's mostly under 30%, but with significant slopes throughout the site. It's generally vegetated with brush, and this site, because it's on a pretty exposed hillside, is visible for quite a long ways downhill. So that's something to keep in mind, and that will be relevant to some good conditions I've proposed later. Here are cross sections provided by the applicant. So the one on top is taken parallel to the grade, so it's kind of across the whole site. You can see the dip there where the residence is, the garage up above there, the field, all that sort of stuff. And then the two below are taken perpendicular to grade. So those are where you can see a bit of terracing, which is something we like, and those design elements. As I mentioned, they are requesting a 19-foot difference between natural grade and finished grade. We don't have a cross-section showing that, but I believe that's in the middle of the proposed residence. Some details about the grading. There are 2 retaining walls proposed. The one above the site improvements is 4 feet. The one below is 6 feet. There are 3-to-1 slopes proposed, and all this falls within the bounds of our grading code. The one deviation they're asking for is for that 19-foot difference. You can see here they're pretty large, long retaining walls. And so one of the standards in our code is that 90% of any cut slopes be shielded either by buildings or by landscaping. So that's one of the proposed conditions, 1F. And you guys have been handed some proposed modifications to staff recommended condition 1F that basically allows for a bit more flexibility in arranging the landscaping. And differentiates between that upper retaining wall, which is, again, is where we have that code requirement for 90%, so that's reflected in the condition. I'll just pull it up. The changes are highlighted in red, and then 50% total coverage of the lower rockery wall. So the reason this condition is proposed is because, like I said, there's a lot of visibility of the site. That would be true whether or not it was the extensive grading or any house, it's going to be visible just because of where it is. Since they are asking for that 19-foot difference, the intention of this condition is to mitigate the visual impacts of that by softening the look of just a wall of rock or of green. So that's why this condition is proposed. I'm happy to answer any questions about it. And another note is that the construction time condition on this one doesn't include that equipment start end time clause. So if you guys want to make that modification, let me know, and I will include the condition from the previous grading staff report. 15 agencies reviewed this. Some provided comments, some provided conditions. Notice was sent out as usual. I haven't received any phone calls or emails or comments. Staff can make all 5 findings for approval. That is consistency with the master plan and area plan, suitable site improvements, site suitability, issuance not detrimental, and no effect on a military installation. Here is a sample motion for approval with conditions, and again, with a modification proposed to you and handed out. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions for staff? Mr. Stone. I'm sorry. Ms. Julian, go ahead.
Thank you. Yes, for staff, there's a reference in the Conservation District comment to if roadside ditches are constructed lining the flow line with 4 to 6 inch rock will minimize transported sedimentation. Was that covered somewhere in the conditions or in the design?
So engineering provides conditions regarding drainage and those sorts of considerations. They provide conditions that were sufficient to meet their standards. I did not add anything additional outside of their conditions that they proposed.
Yeah, if I may weigh in also on that, and that typically, oftentimes, we get these comments from the Washoe Story Conservation District, and they're more of a recommendation or a suggestion, and we are very cautious about conditions that may overlap with the review requirements of our engineering department. The last thing we want is to impose conditions that may be in violation of engineering standards. That's why this condition was not added.
Thank you, Mr. Lloyd. Julian, does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any more discussion? Mr. Stanley?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a question about the new, just recently received modified condition of approval, essentially based around the rockery walls again.
Yes.
So we have a comment from the conservation group about rockery walls. We have the original spec, and we have the amended spec. Can you kind of consolidate those for us so we have a takeaway about what's actually going to be suggested, please?
Right. So I believe the Conservation District's comments about the walls were about smaller rocks in the voids. I believe that was included under a separate condition. In terms of the landscaping in relation to the walls, essentially what we have is the 4-foot upper wall, which will be shielded at least 90% by either the building or landscaping. That's the code requirement. And then some additional landscaping required to shield at least 50% for the 6-foot lower rockery wall below the residence.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Christensen?
Thank you. In page 5, the project evaluation, if I may quote, the largest difference between finished and natural grade is 19 feet, which is over the 10-foot limit required by code. The applicant has therefore requested to vary the standard. I see nothing compelling in this application to grant that variance. 19 feet versus the 10-foot standard is significant. And then when you combine that with the fact that this thing is visible for over a mile away when completed, unless I hear something compelling to grant this variance, frankly, I'm not in favor of this. It's just these rules or standards are made for a reason. And I see nothing compelling in this application, and unless you can enlighten me.
Mr. Chair, I would like to address that
Yes, Mr.
issue,
Lloyd.
if it's okay. What we are finding is that this standard is being, there's a request to vary this standard with most of the large grading projects that we receive these days. Much of that has to do with the fact that the only available lands now are steep hillside sloped properties like this one, and we find that this 10-foot elevation difference in terms of grade separation, it's very common that you see this requirement or this request to vary the standard on steep terrain properties. So it is something that we are looking at. We are discussing with the engineering staff, and clearly the engineering staff is much more in tune with these standards than we are. And we will likely be coming forward, not to this board, but to the Planning Commission with a code amendment to address that very issue in the near future. We're seeing this request to vary these standards far too often. What that's telling us is that these standards are maybe a little too stringent and need to be relaxed. So I just wanted to bring this board up to date with the discussions that we're having with engineering. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussions for staff?
This is Kathy Jillian for the record. Going back to Mr. Lloyd's comment there, if the differential set at 10 is to discourage, I take it to discourage erosion, to discourage the aesthetic issue of rock faces and so forth. I understand landscaping is being done here, so my understanding is 90% of this exposure will be covered either by landscaping or the building. Is that correct? on the upper level?
Kathy, for the record, that is correct for the cut slope behind the house. So that's where that 90% rule comes into play.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Stanley.
One final question, at least from me. There was a note in the fire group's response that mentioned the property is in the WUI, which as I recall is Wilderness Urban Interface, is that correct?
That is
and high fire danger and that sort of thing. Did you stipulate and were you satisfied that there was the 50% or 50-foot defensible perimeter there, and that's obviously a condition from the fire as well, right?
Yes, so I had the same concern, and so that's why, as part of that condition 1F, there is a statement essentially saying if anything proposed would contradict with those standards required by fire, that staff would consider alternative proposals that accomplish the same impact on the visual
And
mitigation.
if you don't mind to follow on to that, does the variance in terms of the depth of the cut effectively, does that have any impact, do you think, on the WUI parameters?
Not to my knowledge, but that is falls under the area of expertise of fire, and so I'm not able to completely speak to it.
All right, thank you.
Following up on that question, Kathy Julian for the record. So what would the alternatives be? I take it if the fire requirements for dispensable space say you can't have the landscaping there. Is that what the concern is? That you put in a condition that landscaping will be there, but then the fire people turn around and say, no, you can't have landscaping that close to the house. Then what do you do?
It could depend on the circumstances. It's my understanding that there are some types of vegetation that have different, flammability classifications, so to speak. And so it might be different types of vegetation for below the house. It might be putting it further downslope, but having enough height on that vegetation to still provide shielding for that wall. It would be assessed on a case-by-case basis, so I can't speak to specifics of it. But essentially, the reason that was put in the condition is to allow for staff to still have some ability to find something that works and to be able to enforce that condition if down the line there is a conflict with fire code.
May I ask how far the planting area for the landscaping is from the house right now? How far it would be?
For that question, I will defer to the applicant, who should be able to speak to that specifically.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any more questions for staff? Seeing none, thank you very much. Is the applicant present? They wish to speak on this matter.
Good afternoon. Mike Vicks with Monte Vista Consulting, the applicant's representative. The applicant is also available, as well as the landscape architect is here as well to answer some of those questions. I'd like to thank you for your time. I've got a brief presentation. I think we'll actually hit on some of Mr. Christensen's questions, and it's a little redundant of Kat's presentation, but we'll get started here. The property is located at 2410 La Mancha. There's existing single-family development north, south, and west. It's undeveloped to the east. The zoning is general rural, and the master plan is rural. The proposed development is consistent with those zoning districts and master plan. The proposed improvements will include a house and then the associated driveway, utilities, rockery walls, etc. The grading special use triggers are for earthwork volume, as well as a variation of standards for 13 to 19 feet of 13 foot of cut and 19 feet of fill. As we're coming down the slope and terracing, there's a balancing act that we play. That 19-foot cut or fill sounds excessive. Later in our presentation, we'll get to where that is, and I think hopefully that will calm down some of the concerns. This is the landscape plan. It includes a large turf area to the south. The areas in black are to be revegetated, and then the colored areas are going to be a more landscaped area. This is a kind of a heat map showing where the cut and fill are in excess of the 10-foot maximum allowed by code currently. I'm going to try and use the pointer. The purple area is where the fill is in excess of 10 feet, and so that is mostly in the middle and below the house, which makes sense as we're filling and terracing down the hill. And then the red is where we're cutting slightly more than the allowable 10 feet as we just come up and get to the driveway there. As I move to this next slide, I'd just like to preface it with the landscaping shown is not consistent with what's actually going to be proposed. Palm trees and whatnot will not be there, but these are architectural renderings that will kind of help show you where the cuts and fills are. And what I would like to point out is this area, it's the upper terrace. I believe this is the master bedroom here. This is the area where we have 19 feet. It's a very small area that's just a little terrace outside of the master bedroom. Then we drop almost immediately down to the lower pool area. A majority of the grading is going to be within a foot or two of that code maximum 10%, or 10 feet, I mean. It's literally this little section right next to the house that is actually at the 19 feet. So that is a very small amount of the overall grading. And so if we go back to the previous slide, that is, again, right here at this terrace is where we have that major 19-foot differential, and that's because we're filling to get up to the master bedroom before we come back down to the patio. And so we have reviewed the conditions of approval and worked with staff to amend the condition F. We also are more than open to limiting construction mobilization to 7 a.m., not even turning on equipment, and are more than happy to answer any questions. Again, the applicant, Mr. and Mrs. Rappy, are both here, and the landscape architect is here as well if you've got any questions, and I'm here on the civil engineering side to answer any of those questions as well. So we thank you for your consideration and request your approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any questions for this gentleman? Seeing none? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do the applicants wish to add anything further to this? Yes,
Hello, thank you. I wanted to just point out that the property, you can't see how the actual grade is of the property as it sits, but it's sloped like this. So we put the house in the middle of the slope to decrease the amount of fill or cut that we had. But to get the driveway up there, we had to come up on top of that hill, obviously, and we're filling the center of that section. So there's two sections that are probably 20 feet higher than the dip. So we put the house in the middle of there to decrease the amount of dirt we had to bring in or take out. So that's where a lot of what Mr. Christian was saying comes into play. Because we moved the house, I actually made him redo that 3 or 4 times, trying to get it to where we didn't have to cut as much or bring as much in or do as much work to the land. And then secondly, the rock wall, we're going to use all the rock from that area, so it'll be colored as you would expect it. It's not like we're going to Home Depot and buying the red bricks and doing it, or the concrete that they use, the big concrete blocks. They're actually going to be like indigenous rock to the area. So, thirdly, on the fire stuff, There is a fire road above the house, and we will be cutting a fire line around the property as well. So there was a house near our 2 houses ago we had that lit on fire. And when she was like 7 days old, I'm not even kidding, my wife called me from work, and I went over there, and we're extremely cautious when it comes to fire. Our fence burnt, part of our backyard burnt, so we're like as cautious as you could possibly be. So just to touch on the fire thing. So, and if you guys have any other questions, I'm more than happy to.
Can you state your name?
So I was going to say, could you state your name?
First name's Jonathan, last name's Robbie, R-A-B-E.
Madam Secretary, does he need to fill out a form or not, or is that acceptable with just his name?
He does not, since he's the applicant himself.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, thank you for stating your name.
Yep.
Are there any questions for this gentleman? None?
Nope.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate it. Okay, with that, we'll go ahead and close that portion, and we will open it up for public comment. Madam Secretary, do we have any public comment?
I do not have any hands raised via Zoom, but in chambers I have Randy Ferguson. If you could please state your first and last name for the record.
Randy Ferguson, you would like to?
Please come
Yes,
up to the
please.
podium.
It's okay.
I'm Randy Ferguson. I'm a resident right below where they're going to be building the home. So I've got some pretty grave concerns as far as the water impact, environmental. The road that's next to me is it's a dirt road, and with construction, it is going to destroy it. There's not enough coverts. 3 years ago, we had a rainstorm. I had a foot of water in my backyard, and with that being said, that size of a project is going to bring a bunch more. Not only that, but you got a built-in pool. I don't know how the aquifers are measured or weighed out, that kind of thing, but when you got a built-in pool and you're pulling off of the water, I mean, I'm right there. And not only that, I've got 3 other neighbors that are in that same vicinity. My main concern is the welfare of my home. So I mean, this is a large home. I am a contractor. I'm a contractor here and in California. I know how it works. I want to extremely go to the side of caution when it comes to runoff, because it only takes one of those 10-year storms that would wipe me out. That's what I got.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Robert Long. If you could please state your first and last name for the record.
Hi, I'm Robert Long. I'm the next door neighbor of the proposed residence. I'm at 2440 La Mancha. And I just want to say, my colleague Randy has some good points regarding runoff, but I do believe I've sat down with the Rabes. They were kind enough to come over because we're actually next door neighbor. We will be next door neighbors. They came over with the plans, and we talked about, lines of sight. We talked about drainage. We talked about one thing that he has mentioned that I want to amplify, very important. They're going to be building that retaining wall in the back out of natural stone. Ours is with those giant, we have the same issue, and ours is, we didn't build the house, somebody else did. We have the giant, white cement blocks right behind our house. So I think that's a fantastic thing. So line of sight, you're going to have a beautiful panoramic. The house is large, there's no doubt about it, but behind the house, it's not going to be like a dugout eyesore. It's going to be just natural rock. I think that's very important. And let's see, we talked about drainage, we talked about that. I do believe the drainage problem, or issue, I shouldn't say problem, we don't get a lot of rain up there, is we have a very nice drainage ditch in front of our houses all the way down at the road on La Mancha. And I think as long as that drainage is continued up the road, it isn't there now. I mean, it's there small, but it needs to be a little bigger. As long as that's continued down, I think that the drainage is going to be fine. The only issue is any drainage that runs down his road, and maybe he can address that. Other than that, these folks seem to be like they're excellent neighbors, because we went over a bunch of other things as well when they came over and laid out the plans for us. And I think overall they'll take care of anything that needs to be taken care of in terms of being a good neighbor and being careful not only about fire, but we did talk about drainage, and we also talked about water usage. We're very concerned about people using wells and so on, because we're all on wells, and who knows where that's going to go. But I support their application very much.
Thank you, Mr. Long.
Thank you. Next, I have Amanda Rabe. I might have butchered that. If you could please state your first and last name for the record.
I'm not aware of the formalities, but my name is Amanda Robbie. I will be the future homeowner, hopefully. I did want to address our potential new neighbors. I absolutely understand the fears that come from a house being built directly above you, and that it is directly above. We do own into the road also. Our property extends further than what you guys actually see. It actually does cross La Mancha itself. So that being said, part of our plan and hopes is to join up if the neighbors want, but we will be paving that road all the way up. So dust, noise, all of those sorts of things, and I don't want to drive down a dirt road. So that will be addressed. Our home will have fire sprinklers in it as well. That is part of our plan. Obviously, that will go into a different version of where we are permitting through, but that is part of our initial plan, and it's a big part of my plan alone. So I will address that. I might have forgotten. It's a little nerve-wracking to stand up here and remember everything that I would like to go over. If my neighbors do have questions for us, we encourage them. I will give them my phone number. We will explain whatever questions come about. It is very important to us to be good neighbors. We actually moved out of our former neighborhood due to we just were not the right demographic for our neighborhood, and we were not happy. So we sold, we bought land. We hope to build our forever home there with our 3 children. And the large size of the home can be contributed to. We actually have multiple family members, including 2 sets of elderly parents. So one day, my family might have to move down from North Idaho so that I can take care of my dad, who was shot in the line of duty as well. My mom currently does. If for some reason she wasn't, I will be taking care of my father, as well as my husband, who has elderly parents as well. They will be taken care of. Not outside of our home, they will be in our home with us. So that's a big factor of what we want, and to be comfortable with each other, because I can't stand my parents, but I will take care of them. So to have them downstairs is a really big deal for me. But if there's any questions, we are happy to answer those, happy to expand on anything that you might have hesitations on. I do understand that you guys see a lot of things, so I will bow down and say thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have no further public comment in chambers and no hands raised via Zoom.
Thank you very much. With that, we'll go ahead and close public comment, bring it back to the board for discussion. Is there any discussion on this matter?
Kathy Jillian, for the record, just on the question of the drainage that was mentioned, did staff want to address how the engineers addressed that question or that issue in the document, if that's relevant?
Kat Oakley, County Planning. All I want to say on the matter is that the engineering department, they're the ones who regulate that. They have their own standards. They reviewed this and provided their conditions, and I have nothing to add to what they've said.
Any other questions? It's closed to public comment. This is back to the board. If the board has a question that they want clarification on, they can go ahead and ask you to come up and do that. So, Mr. Christensen.
I think as my colleagues are, all my colleagues are all aware I'm a real law and order guy. When something is written and is codified, and I'm talking about the 19-foot cut versus a 10-foot requirement or a maximum. I have a real hard time getting over that. With all due respect to Mr. Lloyd, and I take that point very well, what you said about our codes and rules and regs are a living thing. They must be flexible. But I don't think the flexibility extends to this board. I may be the only guy that will vote in opposition to this measure, but I really don't like the such an extreme difference between 10 and 19 foot of that cut. Also, we've fallen in again, if I may observe, into what I call mission creep. This is an application for a grading permit.
Member Christensen, if you could please speak into your mic. Thank you so much.
I'm guilty of my own problem. What I call mission creep, in other words, this is supposedly an application for a permit and variance for grading. And I appreciate, and I'm really knocked out by the illustrations in the house. It's beautiful, by the way. But I think we need to narrow the scope a little bit and say yes or no to the grading as presented, and I am in opposition to it. They can come back, either modify the grading or wait until this planning department makes their necessary changes and update, if you will, of the requirements of the maximum grade or maximum cut. So again, I'm for very technical reasons, I'm in opposition to this.
Thank you. Mr. Ferguson brought up an interesting point about the water runoff. And maybe if we can have the representative come up here and can at least address that issue. I think it is a concern. Obviously, you have a house right above and then right below. I'd like to know what you're doing to mitigate that or to address that issue.
Thank you very much. Yes, that is an absolute concern, mine as well, as I'm stamping the plans. The engineering condition G specifically addresses that issue, and we will be preparing a hydraulic report and designing all of the improvements to the 100-year storm event. So the 10-year event was mentioned earlier. We were going to design the improvements for the 100-year storm event. And so the drainage generated by this site will be brought around. The drainage that happens above will be caught in a drainage swale above the upper retaining wall, routed around the house, and any erosive velocities that was brought up earlier in the drainage ditches. If any of those velocities are erosive, they will be lined with rock. And then ultimately the differential between the existing development and the proposed development will be detained, slowed down, and then emitted into the downstream drainage facilities at or below the existing condition. So with the proposed improvements, we will be addressing all of the drainage that generates. And that is already a condition of approval as engineering condition number G, letter G. So I just thought that would hopefully address that concern.
Thank you.
Thank you.
A follow-up to that, Kathy Julian, for the record. At what point, this is more for staff, I think, at what point does the detailed hydrology and hydraulic report that needs to be reviewed and approved by the engineering division, at what point does that happen in the process?
That, thank you, through the chair, board member Julian. Yeah, those conditions need to be included as like the hydrology report and any other of the required reports or studies need to be included with the submittal when the permit or the request for the permit is submitted to building. And at which time engineering will do a thorough review of all of the studies, all of the reports, as well as the plans that are submitted.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any further discussion amongst the board? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
This is Rob. For the record, I'll make a motion. I move that after giving reasonable consideration to information contained in the staff report and information received during the public hearing, the Washington County Board of Adjustments approve with condition special use case permit WSUP 22-0030 for Jonathan and Amanda Rabe with the conditions included in Exhibit A to this matter and the modified 1F condition, having made all 5 findings with accordance with Washington County Code Section 110.810.30, consistency, improvement, site suitability, issuance not detrimental, and no effect on a military installation.
Thank you. I will second that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
I, with a concern about the variance between 19 and 10 feet, to support Mr. Christensen's concern, but vote aye nevertheless.
Thank you. The motion passes. Thank you. We're going to take a 5-minute break real quick, and then we'll get back to the agenda.
Recording stop.
We'll close this meeting right now. That's right. It's not fit for man and their beast out there. So what did you do for Thanksgiving?
I just spent it with my family. It was fun. Yeah, it was good. Nothing crazy. Food, drinks, music. Your usual Saturday, you know?
Do you have a big family here in town?
Yeah, but a lot of them were out of town, so it was like there was only like 15 of us.
That's
So
nice.
yeah, it's still like big, but it feels small compared to when everyone's here. But yeah, it was good. Anything fun for Christmas? You're like, who's my high school girl? Were you guys high school sweethearts? Really? Oh, that's sweet.
Very inclusive, just.
What is everyone?
This is a much higher level.
What's her name?
Right. So are you going to be here for the planning commission meetings and all that too? So you get to know those? Are you going to be with the Thursday parcel map meeting?
I'll be on live with her.
With her, okay.
Yeah, 'cause I was there for the last one.
Okay, so I saw you.
Because that's a different.
Yeah.
Do you want to make public comment at the end just to introduce yourself? Yeah, just do it. If not, I'm sure Trevor will. Wait, is she the one who does like the videos when you guys go out? Stop. Oh my God,
How's that
people are
sore throat?
adorable together.
How's your
That's
sore
so
throat?
cute. They said you can hear us talking.
I don't know.
Go ahead and bring this meeting back to order.
Recording in progress.
Next item up is special use case number WSUP 22-0031, the Looking Stone Farm Commercial Stables. And I believe we have Planner Olander.
Good afternoon again, Julie Olander with Planning and Building. So this is a special use permit.
Excuse me, but I can't hear anything on Zoom.
Hello? Julie Olander with Planning and Building. Can you hear that?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Oops. I'm going back and forth here.
There we go.
All right. So this is a special use permit for Looking Stone Farm. They're asking for a special use permit to approve a commercial horse boarding stable for 31 horses per table 110-302.05.3. And then they're also asking for some modifications to the paving surfaces to allow non-paving services and to reduce the landscaping standards for commercial uses and also to waive the screening requirements for commercial properties adjacent to residential properties. So this property is located out in Washoe Valley. You can see where 395 is and where the lake is, and it's east of that. So the site is master planned 8% rural residential and 92% rural. The regulatory zoning on the property is 8% high-density rural and 92% general rural. The surrounding parcels to the north, south, and east have the similar master plan designation and regulatory zoning, and the parcel to the west has a regulatory zoning of medium-density rural. The parcel is within the South Valley Area Plan in the Rural Character Management Area. The commercial stables is for 31 horses, and the facility will not be open to the public, and there will be no events or horse shows at the facility. The 17,000 square foot proposed building includes a 15,000 square foot, 636 square foot indoor riding arena, and also a 1,364 square foot residence with 2 bedrooms and a bath. Washoe County Code does not require an administrative permit for the indoor arena because it is attached to the residence. So it's seen as one structure, and there's no need for an administrative permit for the arena because it is part of the residence. There will also be a 10,880 square foot barn with stalls and office and tack room and a restroom that will be adjacent to the arena and residence, and it'll be connected with a breezeway. So here's the layout of the site. You can see where the indoor and residential, the residence and the indoor arena are, and then where the horse barn is. And then also there's 3 pastures at the entrance of the site, and then 8 turnout areas at the back portion of the property. And here is an layout of the floor plan of the arena and the residence. The residence is highlighted in yellow. And then this is the barn with stalls. There's office, restroom, there's area for a tack to be stored and so forth. And then there's 31 stalls in this barn. The majority of the site, the 20-acre site, will remain open to pastures, like I said, with the 3 pastures in the front and the 8 turnout areas in the back. It will be provided, the facility will be only have training for the horses that are boarded at the facility. Horses will not be brought onto the site if they are not boarded on the site. The hours of operation are 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., 6 days a week. There will be 1 caretaker on the site 24 hours every day, along with 7 employees. 4 will be full-time, and then there'll be 3 part-time staffs. The stalls will be cleaned daily, and there will be the flies will be managed with a product called Fly Predator. The site is relatively flat, and they're only proposing to grade approximately 3,756 cubic yards, and this does not meet the major grading thresholds, and so there's no special use permit with the grading. The access is from William Brandt Road, which is a 2-lane road, and there's also an emergency access along the western side of the property where there's a ditch in that area, and I'll show you a picture of that in the next slide or 2. The applicant indicates that traffic generated will be minimal, about approximately 20 average daily trips a day, with a peak flow of 4 to 7 in the AM and the PM. And due to the minimal increase, no traffic study is required. Parking for a horse facility is based on the number of horses you have on the property. It's for every 0.25, basically for every horse you have to have 1. Every 4 horses, you have to have 1 parking place. So with the 31 horses, there's 8 parking places required, and then parking additionally for the employees. The applicant is providing 15 parking places, which should meet the needs of the site. And then there is parking along the west side of the barn, and then there's going to be 1 paved ADA parking place. Trailer parking will be located at the south side of the barn. And I'll show you a picture of that. It's with the landscaping, so I'll show you there where that is. So the landscaping for this property is, because it's commercial, they're required to landscape 20% of the site. So the breakdown is that they have approximately 186, 1 acre at 0.86 acres that will be landscaped with ornamentals. About 0.8 acres will be native landscaping, and then 6.3 acres will be used for the pasture. The proposal is for about approximately 73 trees, 483 shrubs. And the applicant is proposing to put trees along the entrance of the site every 25 feet. So here's a layout of the landscaping, and I thought this also showed where the emergency road is on there, but it must have been on a previous site. But you can see that there's landscaping along the frontage and then along the driveway. And then they're also proposing to put landscaping trees and shrubs along where the barn and the barns are located, so they will be screened from the adjacent property owners. As I said earlier, they are asking for modifications. They're asking to not have to pave the driveway and the parking area and the maneuvering area. They are going to pave the ADA parking space. However, they're asking for this modification, and this is fairly typical for riding stables because of the safety of the horses and riders. Horses can slide on pavement. If a horse gets excited and there's a rider on it, they can come off, and it's not a pleasant thing to come off on pavement. It's not pleasant to come off a horse anyway, but on pavement it's even more dangerous. And then they're also asking for the modification not to have to buffer along the property lines. And this location is somewhat rural. It's located not next, they don't have no property owners right next to them. There's no, so there's no properties right next to it. So the applicants are requesting this because of the ruralness and that the location is somewhat rural. They are proposing to put trees every 25 feet along the frontage, so that's part of that section of code that they are meeting that requirement. Then they're also asking to modify the screening. And again, they're asking for this modification because of the location. It's a rural location. They're going to be riding stables, which is somewhat it's not unusual to have riding stables in this kind of setting. So you're used to seeing barns and those kind of structures out in these areas. So it's not like there's going to be some kind of commercial activity that's going on that's going to be hard for the adjacent property owners to have next door. The applicant did hold a neighborhood meeting on August 16th, and it was held at the Washoe Valley Community Center. They had 7 people attend. They had questions about events, waste disposal, lighting, and dark skies. And I did put a condition in the conditions of approval that they have to meet dark skies requirements. 32 parcels were noticed. I did not receive any emails or phone calls about this facility. The application was reviewed by various agencies. Any of the agencies that had conditions, they're included in the conditions of approval, and staff is able to make the required findings as detailed in the staff report. I provide a possible motion, and the applicant is here, or the applicant's representative is here, and they have a presentation. And I'm available for questions, or you can ask for his presentation, which one you want first. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for staff?
Kathy Jillian, for the record, can you expound on this? There was in the conservation district's comment a reference to a bio retention facility. Could you explain where this is and the significance of it?
Yeah, Julie Oland, for the record. I am not familiar with that, what they were requesting in that. And I didn't reach out to them specifically on that. As it's been pointed out in the past, the conservation group is they provide comments, but we don't have we have no way to condition their comments. So that is not something I pursued. So I can't answer that fully.
Is there a bioretention facility in this project?
Not that I'm aware of. So I was a little confused by that comment. All right.
Thank you. Mr. Stanley.
Yes. Thank you. Julie, we'd spoken about, and I think one of the questions that some of the folks had in the meeting, the neighborhood meeting, which continues to be a great idea, of course, had mentioned was, does this SUP allow for events? And you and I had spoken about that. Would you go ahead and elaborate a bit on that for the record, please?
Julie Olander for the record. They are not requesting to have events, so that's not part of their application. And as I explained to you earlier, if they choose to do that in the future, they would have to come in for a temporary events license that's managed through our business license folks. And depending on the number of attendees, that might come before you, or it might be internally reviewed and processed that way.
Thank you.
Ms. Olander, I got a quick question for you. On your presentation, it was page 14, not that it really matters, but it talks about your 8-foot screening element when it addresses a commercial property adjoining a residential property. I'm just curious, what is classified as an 8-foot screening element? Is that trees? Is that a fence? Is that a weave in a fence? Or if you can just, for my own edification, what that means.
Julie Olander for the record. Typically, it's a wall, so we would see this and we would not modify that requirement if it was a significant commercial use that was adjacent to residential. So you would see that throughout the community where you have maybe a shopping center next to residential. We would want that some kind of significant screening. And it would really depend on the type of commercial use, so that it might be appropriate for it to be landscaping. It might be appropriate to be just a wood fence, but it just would vary on the type of commercial use and what would be appropriate at that location. That's the reason it's a little vague, but it's not specific. But we want some kind of significant screening when you have a commercial use that is going to impact the neighbors. And that's the reason in this situation, these neighbors are a distance away from this facility, and the facility is not an unusual type facility to have in that location. It's not going to be something that's going to generate a lot of traffic, a lot of people coming and going. So that's where we start looking at what is appropriate to modify, or if it's appropriate to modify. And in this situation, I could support modifying that requirement along with the necessary landscaping requirement that we have typically in commercial areas, because this is not your typical commercial use. You don't think of horse boarding in a pasture area as being offensive or challenging for the neighboring properties.
I thank you for clarifying that, and I tend to agree. This is a very rural area, and to put up an 8-foot fence the whole distance on one side of the property would, I think, wouldn't fall in line with what the area looks like. So
Yeah,
the request to remove that, I can understand it now that I have a better understanding. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any other questions for staff? Mr. Christensen.
For the record, Don Christensen, again, this board knows that I'm a really strict law and order, black and white kind of a guy. When I see that this is a rural residential area zone, and we're talking about clearly a commercial boarding stable, I see there's a dichotomy here. I understand there's not going to be any events, but there could be with a permit. Why would not this be, is it because of the sheer number of animals present that it becomes a commercial enterprise, or is it because they're taking money to board horses? What makes this commercial, and why is that okay in a residential zone or rural zone?
Julie Olander for the record. So this is a commercial, facility. There's an exchange of money, so it becomes a commercial entity, and it can go on in certain areas with a special use permit, and that's the reason this item's before you. is it's allowed per code with a special use permit. So there's certain commercial uses that we've deemed appropriate in residential areas. Riding stables like this is not that unusual to have in a more rural setting like this. So, however, they do need to get a special use permit, and that's why this application is before you. It's not permitted by right, and it's been deemed to be, a special use permit has been deemed to be necessary. But there is an exchange of money, and that's how it's rated as commercial.
Okay, thank you. I think that's what I wanted to hear you say, that it was not permitted by right. So, to satisfy my curiosity, I'm not a horseman. Okay, I do own an acre out in another part of the county. And I want my grandchildren to ride, but we don't have riding trails in my neighborhood. I'd have to go some distance. Is that what this facility is going to encourage? Is people that can come that might own horses, and they have a place where they can groom their horse and take care of it and have the enjoyment of the animal, and then ride in that area, and there's sufficient riding trails and things that might not be considered a commercial use, but for the convenience of the patrons of the stable. Is that what I'm to understand? They could come and ride there, and not in competition.
Julie Olander for the record. So this is a facility that the horses are boarded there. People are not going to be trailering in with a horse. The horses live on this site. They're going to be in stalls, and they're going to be in training. So whatever the applicant chooses to kind of, training they go through, if they're doing dressage or hunter jumpers or roping or whatever they're doing, then that's what kind of training is going to go on there. But those horses live there, and the people that own the horses will come and visit the horses there and ride their horses at that facility. They are not, and they might have some areas to ride the horses around on the acreage, but that's not the prime reason those horses are there. Those horses are being trained primarily for competitions that are going to be located elsewhere. So they'll train the horses on site there and possibly take them elsewhere, but those horses live there. So there's nobody coming in and out, and the horses don't come in. The people come in and out, but the horses don't come out. They live there. That's what that facility is. And they have an indoor arena so they can ride horses in the wintertime or in the summertime and use that facility year-round.
Thank you. That educates me.
Thank you. Are there any more questions for staff?
Thank you.
Seeing none, thank you very much. Is the applicant or the representative of the applicant present wish to give us a presentation?
All right, good afternoon. My name is Eric Hasty. I'm with Wood Rogers. I'm representing the applicant who's also here today. So Julie did a great job. I'm going to try not to be so repetitive, but I'll kind of go over some of your guys' concerns as well. So I think we all have a good idea where this is located. It's in West Washoe Valley. Again, it does have a master plan of rural and rural residential and a zoning designation of HDR GR. And in those zoning designations, this is an allowed use through this process of a special use permit. So I just want to underline that. Obviously, this area has a lot of historical agricultural as well as ranching going on, and I think this graphic here illustrates it really well. I just want to point out that this is in the West Washoe Valley Character Management Area and the South Valley's area plan. So you can see the property highlighted here in yellow, and you can see that a lot of this is agricultural. There's a lot of pastures around here, open views of the surrounding neighbors in the valleys. And there are a lot of residential that are on these larger lots, 10, 20, 40 acre lots. And then there's also some agricultural and commercial uses that are mixed in throughout the valley here. So what we're requesting again is a commercial horse stable facility for up to 31 horses. And then because of the character management area that this is located in, we are requesting a modification to the landscape standards, including the reduction of the setback of having to landscape the whole setbacks, which I'll get into the details a little bit later. The screening requirements that we kind of address with the 8-foot tall fence or wall, and then paved parking. So just to give you some idea of the operations and use of this facility, again, we are not asking for any types of special events, any types of events that are going to be going on here. This is for the boarding of the up to 31 horses, as well as just as a training facility. This is strictly a training facility for these horses, and then they go off and they leave the facility to go to shows. So the only people besides the employees that will be coming here are clients, either the owners or the riders themselves. And those people are going to be scheduled. They're going to have a certain day and time that they come. So there's 7 employees. 4 of them are going to be full-time. 3 of them are going to be part-time. And they're working in a 5-day rotating shift. So it's very rare that all 7 employees will actually be at the facility at one time. And then there's probably not going to be more than 4 clients at a time. So very low traffic generated by this. The owners and operators will be living on site. As Julie explained, there is a living quarters in the indoor arena, and the horses will primarily be located in the horse barn when they're not being out in the pastures or in the indoor arena for training purposes. So the normal business operating hours are requested 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. 7 days a week. So looking at the details of the site improvements, you can see that the surrounding area, so this is oriented where the north is on the left-hand side, and then the south is to the right. So to the south, there is a residence on that adjacent property, but it's significantly farther away from them, as well as on both sides. That's the closest residence that you can see in this picture. That is on another 20-acre lot, which is identical to this actual project. We are proposing 2 main structures on here. The indoor arena is the largest main structure that you can see kind of in the middle there, and then the skinnier is the horse barn where the horses will be kept. We're going to provide landscaping, and I'll go into the details of the landscaping, but you can see it's kind of concentrated around the driveway as well as the facility itself. And then we have the 3 pastures up in the north end, and then the smaller pasture, or the larger pasture in the back with all the turnouts, as Julie explained. We are providing 11 parking stalls and then up to 4 trailer parking. The trailer parking is located to the south of the indoor arena, and then the utilities that are going to be on site as well. Julie kind of already touched on this. This is the layout of the indoor arena as well as the horse barn and what is provided in there, so I'm just going to skip past that. And get into the requested modification standards for the landscaping. So code states that of the disturbed area, 20% of that is required for landscaping, and so we have approximately 5 acres that we are disturbing with all the site improvements that I just mentioned, and so 20% of that is 1 acre. With the residential adjacency, typically in code, if a commercial is next to a residential, you have to landscape the entire setback. And so on this, there's 50-foot and 30-foot setbacks. So 30-foot and 50 and 30-foot setbacks along the entire perimeter is a significantly large area that doesn't really will not fit in with the character if we had to landscape that much. So we're proposing to pull that landscaping into where the disturbed areas are, leaving the pastures open. We're not screening off the pastures because these are within the character of the area. We're putting the landscaping along, the buildings, the driveway. The stuff that will actually need to be screened is kind of being softened with the landscape area. And then again, we're asking for a modification to the screening standards. It's not going to be appropriate to put an 8-foot solid fence or wall to block out pasture land. And so we are proposing just to have a split rail fence that's traditionally seen in this area within the pastures. And then just for clarification, Julie was trying to point out, there is going to be a secondary access. There is a ditch that is located along the western boundary, which is on the bottom of this graphic here, that will be used for emergency ingress and egress, as well as maintaining the irrigation ditches. Looking at the parking modification standards, we are providing as much parking as required. There's plenty of parking along where the horse barn is. That's the majority of the riders and employees are going to need to park. They will have direct access to the office as well as the ADA accessible stall. There will be one paved parking area spot. This is to meet ADA requirements, and this will be paved going into the actual horse barn. Everything else, including the driveway, 24-foot wide driveway, is proposed to be gravel. So with that, I'd like to conclude my presentation. I just want to reiterate that commercial stables are allowed use within the HDR and GR zoning with the approval of the special use permit. By modifying the standards of the parking as well as the landscaping, we're helping to meet the character statement of the West Wasso Valley area plan. And the impacts to the surrounding community will be minimal with the traffic that is going to be expected to be generated from this. So Washoe County staff does recommend approval with conditions, and the applicant has read all those conditions and understands. I'd be happy to answer any other questions you guys have. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Are there any questions for this gentleman?
Kathy Julian, for the record, one of your slides referenced a retention facility. Can you just elaborate on that a bit?
Yeah, so the detention facility is just for on-site flows to help collect everything and make sure that it's not going to overburden the other properties. So it's just collecting runoff that will generally be generated by the improvements to the site. Okay, so did you have any view on a recommendation that the bioretention facility have a 2 feet wide, 3 foot deep infiltration trench the length of the basin to encourage recharge and prevent water runoff pollutants from entering the downstream natural drainage? Initially, I don't have any concerns with that. This will have to go through an engineering process, but I don't see any reason why we wouldn't be able to accommodate that.
Any other questions for this gentleman?
I have one, I think.
Mr. Stanley, go ahead.
In the very nice Wood Rogers package, slideshow, could you flip back a couple of slides? I have a question about one of them. Can you go back in the slides? Is that doable? I'll say when. It's the one that seems to show a residence nearby, or nearest by, I guess, or in the view.
Okay, let me go through here.
There's a picture of that one there.
This one right here?
Yeah, that's good enough. The building or the object at the top of the screen center,
Yeah.
what is that?
That is a single-family residence, I believe. It's a home, somebody's single-family
Okay.
home.
And about how far away is that?
I'm not exactly sure. It's over 100
rather
feet.
than put you on a spot like
from
that.
the building, from where we're proposing the building, are you talking about the property line as well? It's over, from the building, I would assume that it's over 300 feet. From the property line, it's probably over 100. I'm not.
Something like that, okay. I guess my question was, I like the entranceway, and Julie and I spoke about this a bit, but about the 459 or whatever it was down to 79 or something trees, pretty dramatic reduction. And what I noticed in this one, and I understood the rationale, no perimeter is required. That makes sense. Nice pasture land, beautiful horses, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
All good. But the sight line concerned me when I saw this graphic with the nearby, with the nearest by home. And a paucity, for want of a better term, of covering or screening trees in that sight line area. Was that accidental on purpose, or can that be augmented?
So you're concerned that we don't have enough trees screening between
between the proposed structure to the right-hand side and the sight line to the nearest residence in this. And the reason I mention that is because around the travelway there, you've obviously landscaped it for more trees, but not in the line of sight area. And I was wondering why.
Okay. So these landscaping plans are preliminary. So we can revisit that when we go forward to the final design.
And again, the only reason I mention it is because, or the primary reason, is because there's such a drastic reduction already, and for good reason.
We can, in the final design, we can concentrate a majority of the trees around the actual building itself to help screen it.
If for an example, the entryway with the nice kind of English style tree line there on both sides, something akin to that, at least on one side, or at least something like that, to help the sight line for the adjoining property.
Okay. Yeah, we can definitely look into that and try to provide that.
So would that become a condition, or how do we approach that, one wonders?
Julie Oland for the record. I don't know if we need to make it a condition. I think it's been stated in this meeting, so I would say that we can just ask the applicant to beef up that area with more trees. We've had that situation come up before where trees have, when the landscaping plan comes in, they've moved trees around a little bit for various reasons. They have issues. So this is conceptual. Mm-hmm. We've asked for trees to be surrounded, be on this, next to the structures as best they can. So I think that that's something that could easily just, when they come in for the building permits, that those are things that we look at and try to make sure that there's trees there. The one thing I do want to point out is we've found that sometimes you put trees out around these houses and there's more attention to them. So that's trying to find that balance between having enough trees there to screen, however, not to bring more attention to the site because it's, in a sense, maybe over landscaped to some degree.
And I think I understand that the code versus discretion issue, but since it's now, there is a fixed number of trees identified, would we want to augment that fixed number?
Well, I'm not sure if the fixed number that they provided, I did not count the exact number of trees they have on this plan.
I'm sorry, I thought it was in the proposal.
It is, but I didn't count how many trees they have on this plan versus what they proposed in their application. So it's just one of those things that we can ask them to move those trees around to make sure that there is more, to screen the buildings.
And I think I'm pointedly asking for an augmentation of that number, an increase in that number.
Let me step in here right now. I guess that defaults back to this board if we want more landscaping for us to make the decision, to ask staff what that number is. I don't know if staff can give that. I think it rests more with us, and if that's an issue that we want to address, I think it comes back to the board and then we'll do it here.
I agree. Don't we typically, when we do this, ask the applicant if they'd be amenable to that if we had that as a...
Well, if it's sure, we can ask if they're amenable to it, but again, the discretion still lies with the board of making that decision.
Yes.
So.
The applicant's asking if we could just have a few minutes to discuss it with the applicant, if they could take a few minutes recess to discuss this further. Or if that's not an issue or whatever you choose to do.
Before we do that, what I would like is to collectively get all the information, and if we need a break, we can go ahead and discuss it all at once. So if there's no further questions for staff, let me ask that. Is there any questions for staff, any remaining questions? Seeing none, can we have the applicant or the representative basically come back up? Actually, who I'm interested in speaking to is the actual applicant themselves. Can the applicant come up to the podium?
They're willing to, yeah, I think so.
Hi, I'm Anastasia Jane.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thanks.
Good. Just a couple things for me. Grazing versus the horses being hay fed. So I'm going to assume that because this is a stable, it is going to be, their primary diet is going to be the hay.
Correct.
Okay. And the reason I always ask that is because of the size of the pastures and how much land is supposed to be if you're strictly grazing a horse. It looks like this is a non-issue, so you've addressed that by doing that.
Yes, correct.
Also, I know this is secondary and doesn't really affect the board's decision per se, but I always like to get this on record too, that in the times of a natural disaster such as a fire somewhere else, would you be willing to open up your facility to house some of the livestock if it became an issue?
Absolutely.
Okay. And in return, would you also have something in force and effect if there had to be an evacuation at your facility to get the livestock out in a timely manner? Is that a process that you already put in place?
Yes, we already have, there's 4 trailer parking spaces on site, and that is because there will be 4 horse trailers, which can get all of the horses on site off at one time.
Thank you. And just last, and this is just a comment, it's not even a question, but I appreciate the enclosed arena that you're going to do, because what that does is cut down on noise in the surrounding area, whether if you're using whistles or shouting things or something like that. So it kind of dampens that, so it's not as apparent to the surrounding individuals there. So thank you for enclosing that. Are there any other questions for the actual applicant? Mr. Stanley.
Just one, kind of following along your idea of asking about the horses. Was the number 31, aside from the fact that you own 7, was that economically driven or physically driven by the amount of resource you have there? Or?
Sure, both a little bit. You know, my husband and I have our own horses that we produce, and we have a son that will have ponies as well. And there is a number between where you're actually making money in a business and you're just working harder and hiring more people. And that was our magic number that we arrived at.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, any other questions for the applicant? Thank you.
Thank you.
Before we close that and go to public comment, to help staff and to help the applicant, Mr. Stanley, are you looking at actually proposing something else that you want to have staff and the applicant discuss ahead of time, or?
My concern was the dramatic reduction in trees. The explanation was no perimeter trees were needed, and I noticed there seemed to be there seemed to be a limited number of trees on the sight line of the nearest residence. So I was asking, since I think I read in the proposal there were 79 trees being suggested, I was asking that number physically be augmented and ideally be placed in that section as appropriate.
And do you have a number that you want to augment it with?
I would like to hear the applicant suggest a number, but I was thinking as few as 10 extra.
Okay.
Based on their landscape design, very nicely drawn.
Yeah, thank you, Eric Hasty, for the record. So we've been having some discussions, and right now we're proposing that we have 1 tree per 25 feet, which is typically what code requires along all the developed area. We would be willing to, so the 73 trees that we're mentioning, that's the minimum too, right? And so this can be added on. And we're willing to go 1 tree every 20 feet along the developed area. But the issue and the concerns that we have is we've had conversations with the neighbor, the applicant has conversations with the neighbor, and they don't want to see their view obstructed too significantly. And so there is this fine balance that we're trying to achieve between preserving these open views, and then as well as providing screening.
So can you convert that to a number of trees for me, please? What's the math on that?
Let me
25
couldn't-
versus 20.
Right now, I can't tell you what it is, but
And let me step in here, and I guess where I would do at this moment in time is, his suggestion, or what he has stated to the board, is that they did talk to the neighbors. The neighbors do have a concern about their loss of a view in the area that you were originally wanting to add more trees. So that will come back to the board for a discussion if we want to do something with that. So.
Excuse me, I misunderstood something. Whose loss of view? Was it the neighbors or the applicant?
no, the neighbor is concerned about their loss of view.
Thank you.
Yeah,
So the neighbors don't want the trees there?
they want minimal. Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, with that, we're going to, are there any other questions for the applicant or their representative? Seeing none, we'll close that. We'll go to public comment. Madam Secretary, is there any public comment on this issue?
I have no public comment in chambers and no hands raised via Zoom.
Thank you very much. We'll go ahead and close public comment, bring it back to the board for discussion. Is there any discussion from the board?
Kathy Julian, for the record, just a clarification on this issue of line of sight. I understand and sympathize with wanting to have perhaps in your line of sight not have the buildings, and therefore landscaping would soften that. But then it sounds like a critical issue is that if your landscaping is tall trees, it obstructs the view. So it's a little more complicated. But can we not simply put in a condition that says that there will be effort made to soften the line of sight between the neighbor and the buildings, and leave it at that?
You know, that's something we could do, but that's a very open-ended and vague statement, and so nobody knows really what that would be. If the distance between one property to the other is great enough, and you're seeing something small in the distance, I would caution the group from then adding trees along the border or the property lines that would then become more of a barrier for them to look further out and over whatever that is in the distance.
Agree.
Yeah, this is Rob for the record. Yeah, in order to do that, we'd have to have elevations and sight lines and all that stuff. So I agree that we just leave that out.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this?
From my standpoint, you know, I'm generally concerned, as I think the board knows, about the reduction in requirements, particularly for trees. And this was pretty dramatic. Speaking to Planner Olander, she mentioned and made the compelling case that the perimeter fence trees would be non-productive and would in fact decrease the attractiveness of the site. I was a buyer of that concept. Looking at that last graphic with the sight line directly across to the house, my concern was that after such a dramatic reduction in the requirement for trees, that some should be added there. The counter argument was the neighbor said, hey, I would just as soon not have the trees. To me, that, from my standpoint, that wraps it up. If they didn't want it, then there's no reason to impose a gratitude on them or a nicety on them that they have no need for. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
This is Rob for the record. I'll make a motion. I move that after giving reasonable consideration to information contained in staff report and information received during the public hearing, the Washoe County Board of Adjustments approve with conditions special use case permit number WSUP 22-0031 for ATJ Holdings LLC with the conditions included in Exhibit A to this matter, having made all 5 findings in accordance with Washoe County Code Section 110.810.30 and 110.808.25, consistency, improvement, site suitability, Issuance not detrimental and no effects on a military installation.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mr. Stanley. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Moving on, next item on the agenda is special use permit case number WSUP 22-0032, St. Nicholas Orthodox Christian Academy. And we have Planner Olander presenting.
So this is a special use permit for St. Nicholas Orthodox Christian Academy. The request is to approve a special use permit for a private school and for major grading that will disturb up to 3.8 acres of the overall site with 9,930 cubic yards of cut and 14,090 cubic yards of fill. The parcel's regulatory zoning requires a special use permit for a private school per the Washoe County Table 110-302.05.2, and the grading meets the major grading threshold per 110-438.35. So the site is located out off of Old Virginia, Old South, the Old 395. You can see where it's located, and then there's a larger view of the site showing what's existing on the site currently. The parcel has a zoning, has a master plan designation of rural, residential, and the subject parcel to the south has the same height, and the subject parcel and the parcels to the south have the regulatory zoning of high-density rural, as does the parcel, and the parcel to the east has a regulatory zoning of general rural. The parcels to the north has a regulatory zoning of neighborhood commercial, and the GR parcel is located within the city of Reno's sphere of influence. The parcel is within the South Valley's area plan and within the Steamboat Rural Transition mixed-use character management area. The proposal is to construct a new 29,944 square foot school building along with an athletic field in the upper portion of the site. The buildings fronting South Virginia have been found to be structurally unsound and will be demolished. The area where the proposed school is to be located is vacant, however, a portion of it has been graded. The school will accommodate a kindergartner through 12th grade and will allow a maximum of 150 students, 75 elementary, 30 middle schoolers, and 45 high schools. And the school will include classrooms, an assembly area, a chapel, and office. So this is an overall view of the site, and I apologize where it says existing residents. That moved on me. It should be up there in the corner. That house is there, but I really wanted that little outline to be up where the existing residence is. Also, it's showing where the graded area is up, and that's primarily where the school will be located. Thank you. And then the buildings, unfortunately, that are down along the front of the property will need to be demolished because they are found to be unsound. And again, here's another layout showing where the athletic field is, the parking, and the school. And then the driveway coming up off of South Virginia. And this is not showing up very well. It is a layout of a floor plan of the school. You can sort of see where the gymnasium is, and then the smaller squares are basically the classrooms. And then you can also see the chapel. It's sort of in the middle, and there's rows of seats. Here are some elevations. You have the south, the west, the south, east, and north. And then here's a schematic of it. The topography of the site is somewhat challenging, and the school is going to be located up in a portion that is not as steep, and that's one of the reasons they're proposing to put it there. Some of the area has been previously graded, as I showed in that previous slide, but however, they're going to have to extend that area to build the structure and the athletic field that they're proposing to put in. The grading is primarily for the driveway, the parking lot, and the building pad and the athletic field. the applicant does not meet, they don't trigger Article 424, which is hillside development. So here's the grading. You can see this is just showing more of the slope. I have another slide that'll show a little bit clearer, but you can see what the slope issues are on the site. And then this shows a little bit better. It shows where the 2-to-1 slopes are that are located along the roadways. And also around the athletic field. So the applicant, like I said, is meeting the major threshold requirements because of how much they're disturbing. However, they're proposing to try to not disturb as much and keep the 3-to-1 slope and use retaining walls to maintain those areas of slope. I could read through that. I'm sorry, I sort of jumped over that. I don't know if you want me to read through it, but so they're triggering, they're disturbing more 3.8 acres on the slope, which is about that have a slope of 15% or greater. And as I said, that triggers the major thresholds. They're disturbing 2 acres, and per code all again, that is, it hits the major thresholds. For stormwater detention, they are proposing to put a site on the application that'll help the flows that are off the property, will help the flows off the property that are equal or less to pre-development conditions. The site will be graded to direct the flows away from the proposed buildings and into a detention pond that's located at the entrance of the site, and I'll show you that in a few slides. The applicant further indicates the steep slopes that will not be disturbed. The steeper slopes won't be disturbed that were shown in that previous slide where you saw the slopes. The site has an existing well and septic on it, and then also has power from NV Energy and the garbage disposals from Waste Management. The applicant will need to work with Washoe County Health District and the state of Nevada to confirm that the existing water and septic will meet the current codes and requirements of the proposal. And the health department has provided a condition to further state that requirement. According to the applicant, the traffic that is going to be proposed with the site is looking at 372 average daily trips, 122 AM/PM trips, and 26 PM peak trips. The applicant will provide a full traffic analysis with the required encroachment permit from Nevada State Department of Transportation, and they may need to address additional traffic mitigation needs. And again, the Washoe County Engineering and Capital Projects Division has provided conditions to address any kind of traffic issues that might come up with that study from NDOT, or that encroachment permit with NDOT. Concerning parking, so the requirement is 0.25 parking places are required per student of driving age, along with 1 parking space per employee during peak employment shifts. The site is to have 150 students with 45 high schooler students, and which requires 11 parking spaces. And they're going to have an additional 8 employees. The applicant is providing 54 parking spaces with a drop-off and pickup area in the circular driveway. For landscaping, the applicant has indicated that a total of 5.28 acres of the overall site will be disturbed and is proposing to landscape 46,040 square feet of that area, which is approximately 20% of the site and meets Washoe County Code. So they're not asking for any modifications on the landscaping. They're proposing a minimum of 182 trees and 1,082 shrubs. Additionally, there'll be 1 tree installed every 50 feet along the street frontage and 1 tree installed for every 10 parking spaces. All disturbed areas will be re-vegged with native seeds and trees to stabilize any slope disturbances, and any imported material will be certified weed-free. So here's the landscape plan. You can see where the trees are going to be located. Also, it sort of shows you where the parking is. And so traffic will come in along that circular drive for drop-off and pickups. The applicant held a neighborhood meeting on August 18th. However, there were no attendees. 65 parcels were noticed. I did not receive any emails or phone calls. Various agencies have provided conditions of approval, and those are included in your application, in the staff report. And staff is able to make all the required findings as detailed in the staff report. And I have provided a possible motion. The applicant's representative is available. He has a presentation, or just can answer questions, whatever you would prefer. And I'm available for any questions also. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any questions for staff?
This is Rob. For the record, I do. Can we pull up slide 6, please? Okay, so that where you accidentally put that marker, existing residence, that house down there, it looks like they're getting access from the property. Is there some kind of agreement? Can you speak to that, how they're going to get to their property?
Yeah, and I didn't include it in my PowerPoint. It is included in my staff report that access will be maintained for that property. The access will be maintained for both those properties. So that's an agreement that the applicant has already established with that residence.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah. I should have pointed that out since it got moved.
That's okay, that's all right.
So Julie, that residence there will have to drive through the parking lot of the school to get out to Virginia Street?
Julie Olander, for the record, yes, and that's currently how they're accessing their house anyway right now, so that their access won't change. It's not being, no alteration to that access.
Okay.
And the applicant representative could probably speak to that more if you want some more details on that.
And the other thing I have for you, just for my own edification, is I noticed that within your report under utilities, it said the applicant's previous approved SUP was with a commercial septic and well. And I did not see that under conditions, but I will assume that that would fall under maybe health or something, and that would be
Correct.
when it gets to that. Okay.
They're going to still have to establish that the existing well and septic that's on the property is going to work for this new facility, and that's conditioned by the health department.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Any other questions for staff? Mr. Christensen?
In the report, and then I see here in the illustration, there's a building, I'll just say far left and down in that corner, but still within the property line. Is that a residence? I think it said in the report that was a residence.
Yeah, I believe that's the residence. I'm going to leave that up to the applicant. He can probably tell you a little bit more on what's going on those houses. But they are going to have to be removed because they've been deemed
what the disposition of that residence is going to be.
My understanding is all those buildings are going to have to be removed because they are not stable. They're not livable. They're not usable anymore. They haven't been maintained.
Well, I understand that the one's on the right, but the one on the left.
Oh, that one's on the other property. The house, all the structures on the north, the parcel to the south will be maintained. There's no change on those parcels. So we're only looking at the parcels that are within the blue line.
Right. So what is that one lonely parcel or one lonely building?
I'm going to let Mike Rayleigh speak to this.
I think for clarification purposes, it's the one house that's within the blue line that is in the lower left-hand corner.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. For the record, Mike Rayleigh with Christie Corporation here representing the St. Nicholas Orthodox Academy. That was constructed as a house. However, for years it's been used for office and storage space. So the plan is that building will not be removed. It's going to continue to essentially function as a storage building in support of the school.
Okay. Thank you. That helps.
You bet.
Are there any more questions for staff on this? Seeing none, thank you. Is the applicant or applicant representative present and wish to address this matter.
Sure. Once again, for the record, Mike Ray with Christie Corporation. I had a presentation. I think it's extremely repetitive from what Julie presented. So just to let you know, also Kristen Damara and Brett Sabatini with the school, they're on via Zoom if there's any specific questions. But I think all of you probably remember we were before this board last year for the same project for temporary classrooms while we developed the plans. Those classrooms were actually never brought to the site. The school found an existing building in Reno that they could use on a temporary basis, and it just made more sense that it was a kind of more of a seamless transition. So we're really moving ahead with the project that was discussed during the last special use permit review. It's finally coming to fruition. And in terms of the grading, if you look, the site design itself kind of is designed around the areas that were already disturbed and takes advantage of that. And so even though we are increasing a little bit, it's really to make sure that the proper transitions that aren't there now are going to occur. So it'll be a much, visually, it'll be much more aesthetically appealing in the finished condition than what exists today. As far as the access to that residence that is off the property to the south, the access is going to be greatly enhanced for them with the new, everything will meet code. Obviously the grades on the road will be much better. There'll be snow removal. Everything will be paved. So we think it's really a great benefit. And the neighbor relationship there has been great over the years. And so, I think it's definitely an improvement for that property. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have, but I think Julie covered kind of everything that was in my presentation. So,
Mr. Stanley.
Thank you, Mike. This isn't a question. I just want to applaud the package that your piece of this and Christie's piece of this, as well as Julie's. But I thought it was very interesting to hear the history, and I'm glad you put that in, of the land and how it's evolved to a higher purpose. I guess you could make a bad joke. And also the graphic showing what the construction might look like looks dynamite. I mean, it looks great. It'll look nice on that hill.
Great, thank you.
In my opinion.
I have a quick question. There is a house right there down by the road. I think it was yellow or white. Looks like it's occupied. Are there any in the clump of homes that are down there? Are there any that are actually occupied?
No, there are some. So if you kind of go back, this has, as Commissioner Stanley referred to, this site has a rich history. At one point, it served as a divorce motel, and so there are those little apartments. Those have all been deemed basically they're unfit for inhabitability. So anything that's on our site down along the highway on that east side of the site is all going to be demolished, and it's actually in the process of being demolished.
And I know there's the little outbuildings back there.
Those would be removed.
But there was a house that sat kind of in front.
There is a house a little further to the south,
Yes.
but that does not access through our site. That they have their own access further down.
Is that
Virginia
on your
Street.
property?
No, it is not.
Okay, all right, never mind. And was there any discussion with any type of heritage, since you have some of those buildings that were built in the 1800s? Or
They went through, and unfortunately, we looked at that during the last use permit. They were so heavily modified over the years from what originally happened that very little of the original structures were left, and what was done was probably likely done without permits years and years ago, and just it was not a good condition. And then recently, with those kind of operations ceasing within those, it became kind of a nuisance to the area with vagrancy and that sort of thing. So I think it's going to be a huge improvement.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions for this gentleman?
This is Rob. I have one. Mike, no disrespect intended, but regarding that house where you guys are going to give access for future, is there going to be a written agreement so they could always have?
It's actually already in place. They have
Okay.
they have an access easement across our property
Okay.
for that.
That was it. Sorry. Thank you.
Kathy Gillian for the record. Will this facility be used at all for Sunday services?
At this point, I don't believe there's any plan to. However, I wouldn't rule it out that it could in the future, but we would have to demonstrate. I believe that's a separate permit through the county. I'd have to refer to Julie or Trevor on that. We would, if that did happen, we would have to demonstrate that we were in compliance with NDOT conditions related to traffic and parking and that sort of thing. It really is, the intent is the chapel is integrated into the school for school purposes.
One more quick question. You are not going to be, are you, I mean, not, you're not going to, are you going to be using any buses to get students in or not?
No, at this point, if there were, it would be more like a van, like a standard van. No commercial buses or large scale busing by any means.
So drop off and pickup will be done by relatives, parents, or someone authorized to do that.
That's correct, and yes, I would assume a few of the high school kids or some of the high school kids of driving age may have their own cars that they bring. But that's part of the reason why we have the additional parking, to make sure that we accommodate that.
And I did notice that we do have a traffic part on this too, which I think is going to be needed, because between what I think class starts at 9 and ends at 3, so there'd be a lot of traffic right before that and right after that of coming in and off, off the street. Okay. Any other questions for this gentleman? No. Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Madam Secretary, any public comment?
I have no public comment in chambers and no hands raised via Zoom.
Thank you. We will close public comment, bring it back to the board for discussion. Is there any discussion on this matter?
This is Rob for the record. I think it's a good project, and I will put full support behind it.
Thank you.
All right, this is Kathy Jillian for the record. I support this, but I would like to, because there are a couple of houses nearby, I'd like to enhance that requirement that no mobilization of vehicles before 7 o'clock. So if we can just add that language to this condition, I'd be happy. Thank you.
Just for clarification, I'm sorry, is that, are you talking about construction hours?
Yes, construction hours. The same language as was in the, I think, the Dahlin proposal.
Mr. Lloyd, I don't want to delay this, but it's already in Washoe County Code, is it not, the hours?
It is. However, it has more to do with construction noise. If you wanted to, if you wanted to expand that to a condition that any construction itself is limited to those hours, that might be appropriate.
Yeah, because I understand it, and there, you might say, well, I started my tractor up early. Okay, but how far do we go? Because if I drive my work truck up before 7 o'clock, I'm on site also. So I guess the Washoe County Code says you're not to start operations before 7, and you're supposed to close down by whatever it is.
7 to 7.
Do we need to attempt to further try to define that within the conditions, I guess?
I think,
unless you want to say no heavy equipment to be operated before 7 o'clock or 7 a.m., I should say.
I would tend to agree, and I think Roger made this point pretty clear, is that we typically don't. You're right, we don't condition code. However, this is an action order with conditions that goes to the applicant. The folks that are doing the construction see this, and this might be appropriate, I would suggest, because they recognize all of these conditions. That will bring it to the forefront. It will avoid construction noise early in the morning and avoid us having to go out and send our code enforcement staff out there early in the morning. Right.
This is Julie.
I will accept that. Thank you.
This is Julie Oland for the record. It's in the conditions currently. I put it in, it's 1E. It's in your conditions.
I believe that we are going to use the same language as the Dahlin. I don't know if this.
It says construction hours are between 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Saturday. Is that something different?
No, excuse me, Kathy Jillian for the record. No, what I am saying is that in areas where there are neighbors, and this appears to be one of them, it seems not appropriate to me that there is the construction workers gathering at 6 or 6:30, because that's when they get there to beat the traffic, revving up their motors and beginning their equipment with perhaps dump trucks or whatever rolling in. And that it would be helpful if that could begin at 7. Does that make sense? The language is in the Dahlin proposal.
Mr. Chair, if I may, for the record, Mike Raley, I did read the condition that was in the Dahlin. We would have no objection to incorporating that condition onto this project.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Mike, as long as you're there, is the condition going to be no mobilization before 7? That was the language used before.
Yes, that's
All right,
correct.
thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion on this? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'd like to make that motion. This is Don for the record. I move that after giving a reasoned consideration to the information contained in the staff report and information received during the public hearing, the Washoe County Board of Adjustment approve with conditions special use permit case number WSUP 22-0032 for St. Nicholas Orthodox Academy, with the conditions included as Exhibit A to this matter, having made all 5 findings in accordance with Washoe County Code Section 810.30.30, consisting of consistency, improvements, site suitability, issuance not detrimental, and effect on a military installation.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to second that. Always good to have additional schools.
Thank you, Mr. Stanley. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Next item on the agenda is chair and board items. A is future agenda items. Is there anything from the board who wants to add or ask for any future agenda items? Seeing none, thank you. Second is request for information from staff. I would just like to take a moment and say to Mr. Lloyd, thank you for getting the documents to us that we requested earlier. I know it took some energy to do that, using your staff to do that, and I don't know if Mr. Lloyd and some of his, or I'm sorry, Mr. Large and some of his staff was involved, but whoever was, thank you very much.
I'll take full credit, although I did nothing.
Good answer.
Thank you, I appreciate it. You know, it was something we asked for, and it was something I think that'll help us out in the future.
Yeah.
Anything else for?
I'd like to say welcome to Brandon. Welcome to the team.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Yes.
It's a real pleasure to be here. I just want to thank everybody at CSD. And I only met you gentlemen today, but everybody's been so welcoming, so gracious. So it's just a wonderful feeling, so thank you so much.
Well, welcome aboard.
May you live long and prosper.
Yes. Any other requests for information from staff? Seeing none, thank you. Director and legal counsel items, report on previous Board of Adjustment items. Mr. Lloyd, do you have anything?
Nothing to report on.
Thank you kindly. Mr. Large, legal information.
Nothing
updates.
from legal.
Thank you kindly. Madam Secretary, any public comments?
I have no public comment.
Excellent. With that, we are adjourned.